Good evening. This is July 10th, 2025 meeting of the St. Mary's County Board of Appeals, located in the Commissioner of St. Mary's County Meeting Room of the Chesapeake Building, 41770 Baldridge Street, Leonardtown, Maryland. I am Vice Chairman John Brown, here with 4 other board members. We have met our minimum requirements for a quorum, and I will now proceed with the meeting. And before we get started, introduced from the left.
Donald LaRocco.
Good evening, I'm Rita Weaver.
Michael Velke.
Ronald Payne.
Good evening, Steve Scott, Board Attorney.
All right, and also in attendance, we have the John Hauser Sterling, who is the Deputy County Attorney. We've got Stacy Clements, which is a Planner 4 from Lugham, and Amanda Yao, Planner 4 from Lugham. We've got Jesse Harper, engineer, and from DPW, and Amy Carter is our video and media producer. Hope I haven't missed anybody. And for the people out here that are new, the normal chairman is excused this evening and returning from a medical appointment up the road, Mr. George Allen Hayden. So bear with me as I stumble through this process. We have 2 public hearings on the agenda for this evening. The board has the discretion to revise the order of the proceedings, ask questions, review issues, and/or hear such testimony, evidence, and statements as the board shall determine. And the board has the right to close proceedings due to time concerns if the proceedings run late. Okay? Our first case this evening is variance application VAP 24-16-11, the Keefe property. You're going to be testifying tonight, Amanda?
Yes.
Raise your right hand, and do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
As mentioned, our first public hearing this evening is the,
I'm having a difficult, can maybe you pull this down a little bit closer?
thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, any of you in the back, the acoustics in this room is poor. If some of you are having a very difficult time, they can provide you with some hearing devices to help you. Just be aware of that.
Thank you. Variance application 271611, the Keefe property. The applicants are requesting a variance from the St. Mary's County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, Section 71.8.3, to disturb the 100-foot critical area buffer for after-the-fact decks, porch, shed, and stone placement above mean high water, and a proposed deck. The public notice for the public hearing was published in Southern Maryland News on June 20th and 27th, 2025, and the property has been posted in accordance with CZO requirements, Section 21.3.3, and mailings were sent to neighbors within 200 feet of the subject property on or before June 25th, 2025. Certified mail receipts have been received and have been entered into the record of this public hearing. The agenda was posted on the website on or before July 4th, 2025. The owners of the property are Timothy and Rumsey Keefe, and the property is 3.11 acres. It's currently developed with an existing home with decks, a screen porch, and a shed. The property is located at 50810 Holly Point Road in Dameron. Its land use is rural preservation. Its zoning is rural preservation district. And it is in the Resource Conservation Area Overlay. The property is impacted by the 100-foot critical area buffer, as shown in pink, non-tidal wetlands, as shown in green, and steep slopes, as shown in blue and purple. the applicants are proposing 1,843 square feet of permanent disturbance in the 100-foot critical area buffer. And the Critical Area Commission responded on June 9th, 2025, and their letters uploaded to board docs and was included in the board packets for this hearing. Department of Land Use and Growth Management has approved the site plan for zoning and floodplain. The Health Department has approved the site plan, and the project is exempt from soil conservation and stormwater management as it proposes less than 5,000 square feet of soil disturbance. Here's the site plan. And the site plan detail. The detail shows a total of 1,843 square feet of permanent disturbance in the buffer, including after-the-fact development. So I'll start down here at the bottom and work my way up. There's a shed here, partially in the buffer and outside of the buffer, an after-the-fact shed. The detail here, there's some stone revetment here after the fact. There's a replaced screen porch after the fact here, a wood deck after the fact, stone revetment after the fact here, and then an after the fact wood deck here. And the applicants, as part of this proposal, proposing a new deck in this area with steps. They're proposing to remove the old deck there. And the applicant will plan a ratio of 3-to-1 for the development in the buffer, 4-to-1 for the violation mitigation inside of the buffer, and 3-to-1 for violation mitigation outside of the buffer. A buffer management plan and a planting agreement must be approved prior to the issuance of a permit, and a bond has been paid for the violation mitigation. Are there any questions for me?
Does anybody have questions?
I do. I guess I'm a little confused with after the fact because the letter from MDE, it talks about that the original complaint alleged that the unauthorized work had been conducted in Title Waters, but then later on it says no violations were observed.
So MDE did go out to the site. They determined that all of the revetment that was added, the stone that was added, was above mean high water, so outside of their jurisdiction. So they didn't observe a violation in the waters of the state.
Okay, so is that still considered an after the fact? Because you were talking about the revetment.
Yes. So the stone was added without the permit, so it is after the fact they're permitting the stone that was added above mean high water with this application.
Okay.
Does there anybody else have questions?
How much was the bond submitted, please? Do we know?
That is a wonderful question. I apologize, but it is somewhere around,
It's okay. We don't have it handy. They'll probably cover it.
I'm sorry? $11,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else?
No, sir.
Unfortunately, I have my usual list of questions for staff. The first question is, in the staff report, we're talking about 3.11 acres, yet when we have the Critical Area Commission letter, they talk to 1.35 acres. Is there a reason for that discrepancy?
I'm not sure where they got their information. Our information is pulled from SDAT and also from the information submitted by the design professional.
Well, what you're saying is they're paying taxes on three acres. But I'm just saying, I'm pointing out that the Critical Area Commission, their comments were 1.35 acres. Okay. Excuse me, we can talk later, okay? And then I think you showed it again, but just to reaffirm, how much is this acreage is in the critical area? Can you bring your pointer around that?
So all of the acreage is in the critical area.
The whole lot?
Correct. However, the buffer is this portion here where
The
this
dotted line.
old black dotted line is.
Okay, so it just catches the corner of that shed,
Correct.
okay? And in paragraph 8, you talk about a building permit will be required. Is it really required for after the fact?
I'm sorry,
When you go down through the report for staff, there's a mention that you have to have a building permit. And I'm saying for after the fact items, you have to have a building permit issued?
that is correct. They have to complete the permitting process and all inspections, and they are also
Even though we
proposed,
may or may not, if we approved it, they still would have to do that.
this proposal also includes a new deck that's
Right.
not currently constructed, so that would certainly have to go through the
But I just
permitting.
didn't know what the building permit had to cover. The whole thing or not?
It would be issued for all work that's been completed if the board were to approve that work
Okay.
tonight.
All right, I'm just trying to get it clear, okay? And it'll probably be brought up later, but you mentioned in paragraph 3 of section 6, it was mentioned there was 250 square feet of lot coverage in the critical area. Is there a breakdown of what that 250 is?
I'm sorry, can you, where were you referring to in the staff report?
In the staff report, section 6, paragraph 3.
Give me one moment to pull it up.
I didn't know if, and it says there's 250 feet of coverage in the critical area, and I was just curious what that breakdown was.
In the critical area. Paragraph 3.
Yep.
So I'm reading paragraph 3. The critical area buffers establish a minimum 100 feet landward from mean high water line of tidal waters. Therefore, the property is constrained by the buffer. That's not
I had
6.
section 6.
6. Okay. So this was taken from the applicant's standards letter. We put the comments that we received from the design professional in there. So I'd like for him to be able to explain it.
But it is the staff report, so Lugum did measure the different areas, right? And I was just wondering what the breakdown was.
So this particular comment is from the design professional. He's saying that the net increase in lot coverage is 250 square feet within the buffer. I certainly can walk you through, I'd prefer, based on this information, that he explain where he got that number from. I can.
Well, we'll have the applicant discuss that, okay? And of course, I think we've already discussed the fact that MDE did close the record on that case that they were examining, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I've quit. Oh,
One more. Reading this staff report, it said Mr. Keefe has owned the property since 2022. But it doesn't say anywhere that when all this was done. Was it done before he bought it or after he bought it? You know, it's a technical distinction there. Just like that case up in Hollywood where they did all this after the fact and sold it
So
to someone that didn't know.
we can look back at aerials, which are imperfect, and speculate as to when it was added. I think that the applicant could
Well, I'm sure he can
testify
answer
as to
that.
whether that was there, but our belief is it was added after the purchase of the property by Mr. Keefe.
Say that again.
My understanding is that it was added after the purchase of the property by Mr. Keefe.
Well, how did it get here?
How did the
Yeah,
application?
why are we having this hearing then? Not,
Because-
not for that.
Because
but-
Mr. Keefe submitted an application and requested permitting for the, after-fact permitting for the improvements. Does that answer your question, or is there more to it?
Yeah, it's strange, but, if nobody's saying anything, I'd keep on doing what I'm doing. Like everything's
Right.
lovely.
I think once it was brought to the attention of the county reached out to Mr. Keefe, and that was how the process was initiated, and he's done what he needs to do to address.
Okay, yeah, all right, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, the applicant come forward. Sure, come up here, grab a seat. And I will have to swear you in, sir. Not the lawyer, but the applicant.
Yes, the applicant.
You can have you stand please, okay. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth? And would you state your name and address for the record?
D.L. Keefe, the address, this address, 50810 Holly Point Road, Dameron.
Yes. And Counselor, just for the record, your name and,
Jeffrey T. Neiman, professional land surveyor. For linear surveys, we're at 42120 St. Andrews Church Road.
proceed.
Yes, St. Andrews Church Road.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Proceed.
excuse me, since Mr. Neiman is not an
He's not a
attorney,
counselor. He's a,
can we swear him in as well?
okay, I have to swear him in.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, my misunderstanding. So do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Okay, we're finally on track.
Quickly, to answer your gentleman's questions, we need the permit for after the fact. It has to be blessed by the county in order to keep these improvements that Tim has done. You're asking about the increase in lot coverage. There's very little lot coverage that's been constructed out here. The increase is from a little bit of shed and a section of a covered porch.
Now, my question, I don't mean to derail it, but my question was, in your report and in the staff report, there was an indication of 250 square feet of lot coverage in the critical area. I just wanted to know where they were, whether it was the porches, the shed.
Yes.
What pieces accounted for that 250?
And we'll go through that.
Okay,
It'll
that's
come up.
fine.
Hey, if anyone has a cell phone, please silence them or turn them off, please. Thank you.
Mr. Payne, all the improvements that we're going to discuss tonight they were done by Mr. Keefe. Nothing we're talking about tonight was done prior to Mr. Keefe.
Okay.
This is all new to us. We might as well start with the presentation. Do I have control here?
Yes, you do.
Again, there's the property, Mr. Keefe's property. Tim explained why the discrepancy in the acreage, 3 acres as opposed to our measured 1.35.
So 1.35 acres of land itself, and then approximately 1.8 acres that go into the creek. So I'm basically paying, the house is 3.11, 1.8 of that is creek land.
Is what, swampland or
It's
it's really
supposed-
creek?
Creek,
It's the creek.
yes.
Yeah,
You own the creek.
According to the-
Debatable.
All right, I just want to understand.
I
There's-
guess that's a good question. Maybe I'm paying taxes on something I shouldn't be paying taxes on, so I probably ought to look into
Well, I
that, but.
think you need to go talk to those people.
Yeah. You know, technically, Maryland owns tidal waters, but they can't take away rights you've owned since, I think it's 1978. So it gets kind of weird.
Anyway, okay, well, at least we got an understanding for that.
There we are. We're down in Dameron off of Holly Point Road. You can see that the critical area buffer actually takes up 66% of this property. This is the condition of the house when Tim bought the property. It was a bit of a disrepair. I was going to ask Tim if he wouldn't mind telling us something about his relationship to the community and this property. Go ahead, Tim.
Sure.
How you
So-
got this property.
So my grandparents had bought a summer cottage on Holly Point Road back in the late 60s, or the early 60s. And so for the last 50-plus years, I've been spending most summers down on the bay with friends and family. So I know this area very, very well. That home that my grandparents had owned has passed through several generations of my family and now belongs to my brother and my sister-in-law. Dr. Swain, who owned the big red house up in the corner, also in 1979 built what we always referred to as the A-frame. It's the A-frame is the property we're talking about. Ever since I was a child, everybody called it the A-frame. So when I refer to the A-frame, I'm talking about said property. He situated the A-frame on a unique piece of property on St. Clarence Creek on the protected side of the bay, but you still had beautiful views of the bay, the cruise ships, cargo ships traversing north and south, the watermen, everything. It was a stunning piece of property. You want me just to keep going a little bit?
And then your brother and you would come down. Your
Oh,
brother
yeah.
got the house.
Yep, yeah, so Brian and I, we always went down to our grandparents' place, families together, and that sort of thing. And then in December of 2021, Brian called me. We watched for 10 years as this house fell into disrepair, and anyway, fast forward to 2021 in December, when my brother had called me and says, "Hey, Tim, guess what? The A-frame's for sale." So at that point, my wife and I had 3 or 4 kids in college, and the last thing we wanted to do was a project like this. But we loved the property. We thought it was a unique opportunity for us, so we made an offer, and that's how we ended up purchasing the property.
And your brother already has a house down here.
Right, my grandparents' old place.
Yeah.
There are only 7 houses just on that little part of the peninsula there on the corner.
And the house, was it in disrepair?
The house was in disrepair. I mean, the side porch roof was falling in, the front or the back deck, because of some erosion, was starting to fall into the creek. Actually had been taken off at that point. The cedar shakes around the house were 45 years old. They were falling off into the creek.
And you replaced the roof?
We did replace the roof, yes.
I'm not going to go through this. We've already, well, okay, I will go through it. Mr. Keefe is requesting a critical area variance to allow for an after-the-fact extension of an existing screen porch, revetment renovation, a new shed, a waterside wood deck, along with the proposed demolition and construction of a front wood deck. And you can interrupt me anytime you want. This is the state of the house currently. And you can see Mr. Keefe has replaced the steps on the landing, the existing steps and the landing there. You can see the side porch. But anyway, we are proposing, Tim did some improvements to this property, thinking I can improve what was there. But he knew to stop because his dream is to put the front porch across this whole front, not just up to the front door, but to get up, walk around to the porch. So that's part of our application, is to get the blessing from the board to also extend a front porch across the frontage here, not just to a landing to the front door. But that he knew he needed to get a permit for, so he stopped his construction. Until then, well, now that he's here, this is the time to ask for that permission, which will be replacing the 70-square-foot wood deck with a 270-square-foot wood deck along the frontage here. This is the rear of the house, water side, and you can see Tim has built a 314 square foot wood deck. Now, I actually want to go to the next slide. This is a old photograph from 2013 or earlier. But you can see that there used to be a wood deck along the back of the property there. This photograph was given to us by a young lady back here that is going to be speaking later if she can. She's a neighbor. But there used to be a deck. That's why Tim was thinking, well, I'm going to rebuild my deck. Well, the deck wasn't there. He should have got a permit. He didn't get a permit. But at least it used to be there. An important aspect to this photograph is it's a little hard to make out, but you can see the erosion occurring along the banks there. And you can also see the remains of the revetment. There used to be a revetment there. And the rock, the waterside rock is still there. Mr. Keefe has put in the fill dirt and put the revetment stone back in place there. That's how we get back to that picture. There's his revetment. So, and you can even see the difference between the old rock and the new rock. So, a big part of Critical Area Commission's issue is the revetment. Why didn't we consider a living shoreline or whatnot? Well, he had a revetment. There used to be a revetment. He thought it'd be okay to repair the revetment, stop the sediment from going into the Chesapeake Bay. Certainly, that's maybe not as good as a living seashore, but it's certainly better than a compromised revetment eating away at the bank. All right, moving on. This is just a small, probably the size of a shipping pallet, but that's one of the part of this application is a 31 square foot deck on the side of the house is a shower, outdoor shower kind of a thing. 31 square feet addition that he put in. This is the side of the house. So, can you see the difference between the existing porch and what Tim has added? Can you see from the, can you put your mouse on? Yeah, right, right there. So the existing, right, Tim?
That's correct.
So that is all existing porch, that portion of it. Tim added more to the right-hand side. That's part of this application for the after-the-fact variance. So the existing porch is 124 square feet. Tim has added on another 188.
Can I ask a question? Was the roof already there to cover that where the new part was put in?
The roof of the porch.
In other words, you look across and you see the roof going all the way across. Was the roof line already there? You just didn't have a deck underneath.
It's not already
It was
there.
not there.
Brand new, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah. There's the shed that Tim has placed on the property, which, if this is a sticking point, he says he'd be glad to burn it down. But how much of it? It's really only 19 square feet of the shed is in the critical area buffer. The rest of it is outside the critical area buffer. If we need to scooch it a hair to get those 19 square feet out of the buffer, he can do that. But we're hoping you can bless it as it is. And you see that on the site plan there, just crossing into the buffer a little bit. There's the after-the-fact revetment again. The larger of the two. And again, MDE has been out here to inspect the revetment twice. The first time, Greg Kolaric, he went out there and said, well, I see plenty of vegetation along the seashore. I see where the original rock is there. I see where you've placed rock above the mean high tide. We have no issue with this, case closed. Well, the case wasn't quite closed because land use also asked to have this looked at again. Another young lady came out there, Selena Liller, and stated the same thing. We see no offense here. There is no violation.
But we don't have that anywhere in the record, right? The second one?
So just a slight correction, if you don't mind,
Yes.
Mr. Neiman. It was actually the Critical Area Commission that requested that MDE go back out again over concerns about whether or not a living shoreline would have been a better option.
A little confusing because the Critical Area Commission says that it's their understanding the Lugum was looking into it again, so we'll
Originally,
wait for that.
originally, yes, and then the second request was made by them again.
Okay,
All right, I just,
and I have those two letters from the two MDE,
well, the MDE, we have the record of.
both letters.
But with the other one, where you said the county went out, do you have, is there a record of that?
That's this second letter.
A record of the county going
Yes,
out?
yeah.
So, not in the file. I don't have a record of the county going out. That's part of a code enforcement case. So, there should be two letters from MDE
Yes.
in the file.
Neither requested from DeLugum, apparently. One, we don't know who
Okay, all right.
asked for it. The second one was asked for by the Critical Area Commission.
Now, did everybody get that second letter?
I have both.
Okay, I guess I'm the one missing it.
You can have mine.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, enough of the revetment. Moving on. There's our survey transit in the back there. Moving on. This is the second revetment, a little further to the west, much smaller than the first, 113 square feet. Same condition. You can see the old rock was there. Tim added some more rock there because that revetment had been compromised. Yes, Tim?
Just there for the tree's purpose. The old
Can
revetment
you
was there.
speak into the mic?
See the old concrete pieces along the side. I guess the ownership before myself tried to do the same thing and save the tree, and I just put some new rock there. I pulled the old cement up out of the St. Clarence Creek. You can see it along the bottom there, and I added some more stone to it.
This kind of gives you the overview of what's happening here. Everything in blue is after the fact. Things that probably should have gotten a permit but didn't. Understandably, maybe. He rebuilt the deck that was there. Maybe not so understandably. He extended the porch, but the extension of the porch is not a big impasse by the Critical Area Commission. They say we really won't object to that porch extension if the county was to think of this as an in-kind porch, an extension of the existing, which it is. Those two revetments, even though they're repairs of existing revetments, they are after the fact and need permitting. The red obviously is what was there when Tim got purchased the property. Green is the proposed deck we're asking for permission for.
And that green will connect to what you already had in blue, right? So it'll be a walk around.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In fact, he has I don't want to go back to the slide, but there's even he's already put a door into the side of that.
Well, I noticed the door
Station.
that went to nowhere.
Yes, the door to nowhere right now. And I think this is our last slide, but there's our site plan, and you can see the little forest that Tim is going to have to plant because of his indiscretions. So the penalty is pretty stiff. It's all that after the fact, these little spots of after the fact, you get penalized 4-to-1 ratio in the buffer for replanting square footage. And 3-to-1 on top of that if you want to keep it. So he's got 7-to-1 replantings. Now, I would almost argue the fact that it seems excessive in that a revetment requires plantings, especially a repair to a revetment that used to be there. Maybe one would say the same thing for the deck. In fact, what we're talking about is permanent disturbance. So you have to plant for permanent disturbance. Well, is a raised wood deck really a permanent disturbance, or is it where the foundation posts go in? Well, the county has decided it's the whole deck. We need planting for all the decks, all the lot coverage, even if it's not an impervious surface such as these decks. But and we're happy to do that if we can keep our improvements. But that will be, you might bless this project Tim will still have to go out the back door and look at this forest he planted. That'll be his penalty, his bane in life. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So I'm finished with the presentation. I think there's some folks that would like to speak. Any questions?
Anybody have questions?
I have sorry. Okay, I have a question. As far as like the steps coming down, is that part of the square footage that you have asked for?
It is. It's, let's see here. We're talking about the waterside deck, I assume, and the deck itself is 285 square feet. The stairs are 32 square feet. It's all part of what we're asking a blessing for.
Okay.
All right, my question is a follow-up to Mr. Payne. So I don't know if we got an answer to that, but why are we here right now with, I don't believe anyone would argue that the beautification is admirable. That's awesome. That the effort, the time, the money that went into that, there's penalties that are associated with going after the fact.
Right.
Why are we here? Is this just on good merit to
Part
do
of
the
it is
right
to us
thing?
Penalties, you know?
So did someone report this? Like, how did we get here? How did it come before this board?
Who caught you, in other words?
Yeah,
Simple.
that's what I want to know.
That's
How did we get here?
That's
How
a
we got-
convoluted
How we got
story.
here was I got a letter
Yeah.
in
All
June
right.
of 2024 from the Maryland Department of the Environment. It was a handwritten note. It says, "Hi, this is Greg Galorick from MDE. Here's my phone number, my email address. Please give me a call about the revetment work that you're doing." I thought it was a joke, to be honest with you, because it was on a handwritten piece of paper, and it was, I didn't think it was, long story short, I called him and I met with him the following week. He came out to the property. He spent maybe 5 or 10 minutes there. He looked around. He said, "Mr. Keefe, we got an anonymous complaint from one of your neighbors. We take this sort of thing very seriously, so I'm here to investigate to see what you've done." He looked at the revetment. He says, "This is a non-issue. This is above the mean high water line. Case closed." He said, "I would suggest, however, that you contact St. Mary's County and apply for some after-the-fact permits just to let them know what you're doing." So in the time that I was getting ready to do that stuff or was in the process of it, Robert Clemens, I think was the gentleman's name from St. Mary's County, contacted me about the work that I'm doing. And we got together, and this is how the whole process started.
Okay, so in the series of things that you improved in your home, I know that there was a bunch of stuff that was done. Was all of that done when you got that notice, or were you in the process of 2 out of the 3 or 2 out of the 4?
Everything was done except for we had just finished everything. I had no intention to do the front deck. When I did the side porch, I knew I was hoping to get a wraparound, so I put the door there. But nothing else was done. We stopped everything.
Okay, thanks. And real quick, could you go to the slide for what is being asked for? I apologize, I can't get to it on my computer.
Right, is this it?
No, it was like your second slide.
Way in the beginning?
Yeah, sorry about that.
This is what we're asking for, this one, a request? Or,
Yeah.
I think this is just in the beginning. Okay.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that read correctly. So the after the fact is for the stuff that he already did, and you're not requesting an after the fact for what he wants to do.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that those
Yeah.
two things were separate.
Plantings aren't as severe for asking for permission now as
Right. Right.
after the fact.
Understood. That's all I have. Thank
We have to
you.
do the site plan, we have to measure, and figure out what's the penalty going to be. Yeah, he needs to have this construction blessed by the county.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Mr. Keefe, so you know, when the vice chairman couldn't take your answer because we have to swear you in and have part of the record. So
I got you.
that's for anyone that wants to testify. How much did the revetment cost you roughly?
Probably cost me around, I would say 5,000, roughly about 5,000.
So with the
5,500.
5,000 and the bond, you're at 16,000 already, right? I think it looks good. I like what you did.
Thank you.
Right. It's just, you know, you got to go by the law, and law is you got to do it before, not after. And
I understand. My only thought process was, and I know it was flawed, was just, number one, I hated to see the house in that sort of derelict condition. And once we, the excitement of finally getting it, and then, yay, now we can do something about it. It was there. I repaired it. Yes, I understand now. But I didn't just buy this property on a whim and decide to thumb my nose at the county and I'm way down here, nobody's going to notice what I'm doing. I just wanted to get to work on it, and that's what I did.
I got you. And suggestion, the guy before me said here, Guy Bradley, who I really like, we always say, hey, have you talked to your neighbors? So I'm sorry somebody anonymously turned you in instead of coming knocking on your door. So,
Yeah.
that would prevent a lot of stuff in life, right?
Yep.
So, last thing, and I'll shut up, is I'm a tree guy, so I'm glad you're saving that tree. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
here you go, Vice Chairman.
Okay, anybody else have questions? Okay, then we'll open it to the public. Board will now open to a public hearing for public testimony. Anybody wish to speak? Come ahead.
You need me in front of the microphone?
You can stand there and pull it down to you. I'll have to swear you in first. Okay, so raise your right hand, and do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And would you please state your name and your address for the record?
Swain Nissen, and my address is 50825 Holly Point Road. I am the last piece of property on Holly Point Road. My parents were the original owners and built that house. Originally, the property had, my property and Tim's property was all one property when my parents purchased it in 1963. They divided it when they decided to build the A-frame. They unfortunately sold it to a couple who just, we don't know why, they stopped coming down, they stopped taking care of the property. We contacted them over and over, trying to get them to take care of the property. There were broken pipes that leaked underneath. We offered to drain the pipes for them and shut the water off, and we never got a response from them. So we watched that house fall apart. My father was heartbroken watching after he had sold the property to these people. He watched it fall apart, and he got to the point where he would not go out on the dock at our property where he could see the A-frame because it broke his heart. And he didn't live long enough to see Tim bring it back and make it the beautiful house again that it is. We are thrilled to not see that awful shape it was in with it, the roof falling in, the deck falling off. It was terrible to watch that beautiful property fall apart because my parents really loved it.
Okay, thank you.
And we are grateful that the Keefes have bought it and have brought it back to the way it was when my parents built it.
Okay. Stay right there. Anybody here want to have any questions?
No, thank you, ma'am. I
Thank you, ma'am.
appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Looking here at the record, is there a Timothy?
Oh, that's me.
That's you, okay, and got that one.
Cross him off.
And what do we've got down here? How about a Robert Abbott? Did you want to speak?
Hi, my name's
Okay, I got to swear you in first. So raise your right hand, and do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
And would you please state your name and address for the record?
Dr. Robert Abbott, 50705 Holly Point Road, Dameron.
Proceed.
We're really thankful for the Keefes to have rebuilt this house. It was the neighborhood eyesore. My kids referred to it as the haunted house. We're just delighted that somebody has come in and revitalized this house and raised up the entire community. So we're very thankful of that, and we've been before this committee ourselves. Those plantings are really excessive. There's not even the room there to plant all of those plants. I would very much urge all of you to really consider the penalties involved.
Okay, any questions from anyone?
No.
No?
Thank you very much, sir. What is it, Brandy? Bryant? Again, we got to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and state your name and address for the record.
Brandy Bryant, 50705 Holly Point Road, Dameron.
Okay, proceed.
Well, I agree with everything else that's been said here tonight. The only thing nobody has mentioned is that there was this giant pool that the Keefs removed. It was at least 20 feet in diameter. It was breeding mosquitoes like crazy. I can finally go outside now and not douse myself in poison. This pool has been removed. They've penalized him for everything that they've done, but they don't seem to be giving credit for any of the impervious space that he removed as well. I mean, this was a huge pool above ground with a deck. You can see it in the overhead pictures that they had, the county had put up earlier. So that's a considerable amount of space that was removed. I think they're actually calling that clearing the land and penalize them for the clearing, but it was actually impervious space that they did take down.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you very much. Now, looking at the list, is there anybody else who would like to speak on this case? Come on, we won't bite you. Okay, sir. We'll swear you in, raise your right hand. And do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And would you please state your name and address for the record?
My name's Dean Westcoat. I live at 50675 Holly Point Road, Dameron.
Okay.
About a week ago, I submitted a letter to the board, and I wanted to make sure that the board had that letter in their hands. Thank you.
We do. Thank you.
That would be enough for me to understand that you have read it and that
Yes.
you know that we as a group of people in this community support the Keefs. Thank you.
Thank you for submitting the letter, too. Do anybody have questions?
I do for staff.
Okay.
With the,
Relative to the public or just,
something that.
is there
one of the
anybody
pub-
else would like to speak? Anybody else like to speak from the public? Seeing none, we will close public testimony now. Did you have a question, Ms.
I
Weaver?
do for the staff. Something that one of the comments from the public stated was about, okay, if he's cleaning up, trying to improve it there was something there, such as the swimming pool and deck. Did you consider that as clearing of the property, or did you consider that removal of impervious surface?
So we don't have any clearing as part of this plan. We don't have any
Okay.
direct evidence of clearing. So removal wouldn't be charged, but adding new disturbance would have to be mitigated.
All right, thank you.
Counselor, I know the question was asked in other cases, but I'd like to hear you say it again. This board really has no authority to play with the penalties, does it?
Correct. The penalties are more of a menu set forth in the ordinance and sort of a calculation and based on the facts and circumstances and outside of our jurisdiction.
Yes, I just make that for the record so you know, okay? The other thing is, isn't there a question of if the property can't sustain this mitigation, they have alternatives, correct?
Yes.
John Hauser, Deputy County Attorney, and that's correct. If they can't, if there's physically not the space to put the plantings on the property, they then have the option to satisfy that mitigation requirement by paying fees in lieu instead. And Ms. Weaver, as an additional answer to the question you asked before, the mention of why they didn't get credit for removing the pool, if you go back to the aerial, and it's clear on the aerials, I just looked at it myself, the pool itself was not grandfathered in. That was put up by a previous property owner without permits sometime about 10, 14 years ago from the timing of those aerials when I looked at it. Not going to get penalized for removing that pool. You can't get credit, try for impervious surface trading because of it, because that pool itself was illegal. And we can't give you credit, we can't give you trading, we can't let you barter impervious surface coverage for something that you don't have a right to keep in the first place.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, for me, it's just unfortunate that he's doing a service to his community with, albeit didn't go the proper route with the permits, but removing West Nile and whatever else from the area, but there's no barter there. I know it's outside of our jurisdiction, but it's nice to know that your community supports you, and so.
And it's unfortunate. And for what it's worth, too, is that critical area program, state of Maryland will say that it is a local program, that we're in charge of it, that rewrite it. There are state minimum standards that we have to meet. And if there are things we could get out of and recognize where people take a property, make it better, we do it. As it is, we just try and be as lenient as he could. All I can say is an example of that. Normal route of business, we would take the citation, put them through the additional indignity of having to go through court. And I think if I remember right, Mr. Keefe, you actually got served the citation in November, if I remember right from this file, or not?
I was served with something, and when I spoke with Robert, it was a period of time in which we were trying to get all the paperwork with Linear. I had another company, and that fell through. I went with Linear. Jeff and his staff informed me that they were backed up. I contacted the county, the St. Mary's County, to let them know. Somewhere in the line there, maybe my deadline had come and passed, and I got served. And when I contacted them, I contacted Robert Clements, and he talked to somebody and said, no, you've got longer period of time to get your paperwork in.
And I bring that up just to illustrate the point that you could ask for, not you all, but county, and certainly I think some folks up the road would insist on it more strongly than we do. There could be additional financial penalties to tack on here, civil or criminal in nature.
Say again, I'm missing out with the speaker, or I have to use this, or maybe
I think I'm trying to say is that when we see a case where somebody is doing the right thing, and in this case, maybe the thing lingered a little long, it did get to my desk in legal, but the moment you look into and see that they are on the path and trying to make things right, be as gentle and as kind in the process as we can. In that case, even if citations went through, intercept in time that we didn't file in court, didn't make you go through a stead agreement, didn't tack on fines, penalties, those are the types of things we try and do. That's about all the latitude we have to work with in a case like this. Because as Mr. Scott said, the mitigation is prescribed by state law. We cannot reduce the 3-to-1 for the violation. We can't reduce the 4-to-1 for the variance, even if we wanted to, even if we thought it was excessive. We work with it where we can, but some things we've just got to do because the state of Maryland says we've got to do.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? I guess it's time for the board will now move to the discussion and decision portion of the hearing. Anybody have some comments?
Well, I wanted to say, Mr. Keefe, you certainly have a lot of good neighbors that are going to bat for you, so that is a wonderful thing. Sorry that somebody who you don't know did, put you through all this, but, you're finding out, I hope, that you do have good neighbors.
I do. Thank you.
Anybody else have any?
Seems like be a legacy type house where it's passed down to the next generation. Well, explain to them or whoever how you're supposed to do things.
Don't worry, I will.
Because, you know, this is really, it's really quite embarrassing because there's contractors out there that they don't care about the county. And I do. I'm not speaking for the rest of them. They can tell you their own opinion, but that's mine. Thank you.
Well, I'm certainly very supportive of the initiative here, so I don't know. I'm open for a motion.
Second.
No, somebody's,
No.
Okay. In the matter of VAAP 24-1611, the Keefe property, having made a finding that the standards for granting a variance in the objectives of Section 24.4 of the St. Mary's County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance have been met, I move to approve the variance request from Section 71.8.3 to disturb the 100-foot critical area buffer to construct an after-the-fact deck, porch, shed, and stone placement above mean-high water on a proposed deck.
Ms. Weaver, if I may, just based on the way the plan was drawn, there are actually two after-the-fact decks. So could we just revise the motion to say to construct two after-the-fact decks, porch, shed, stone replacement?
do you
Is
want
that
to
okay?
amend that, Ms. Weaver?
Yeah, and as shown on the plans
Okay.
that are in the record.
Hold on.
This motion's a team effort.
Okay. Okay, let me start over. In the matter of VAAP 24-1611, the Keefe property, having made a finding that the standards for granting a variance and the objectives of Section 24.4 of the St. Mary's County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance have been met, I move to approve the variance request from Section 71.8.3 to disturb the 100-foot critical area buffer to construct two after-the-fact decks, porch, shed, and stone placement above mean-high water on a proposed deck as shown on the plan.
Do I hear a second?
Second the motion.
Okay,
Aye.
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 aye. So you've heard the decision of the board, and an order reflecting the board's decision will be prepared by the staff and signed by the board within 60 days. A 30-day period follows from the date the order is signed, during which any aggrieved party may appeal the board's decision to the circuit court. The recording secretary will email you a copy of the order when it has been signed. Okay, thank you very much, and good luck.
Much. I just want to say one thing. During this whole process, I've gotten to know a lot of the staff at St. Mary's County, at the Amanda, Stacy, and Cherie, and everybody has been great to work with. It's been a little bit unnerving at times to go through the process, but they made it much easier. So, just as an FYI, those guys over there, they're fantastic.
Good.
So, thank you.
Okay, our second case this evening is variance application CUAP 25-0306, Southern Waves Dispensary. And who's going to be presenting that? Okay. Thank you, Stacy.
You're welcome. Give us a second to transition.
Yeah, we change the shift, and
Yes, sir.
Mr. Longmore is back in the room, yes.
Yes.
Checking on your daughter, I assume.
Mr. Linhart's on. Mr. Linhart, can I get a sound check real quick?
Say, I guess I really need to swear you in again for this.
I stood up for the initial swearing then,
Okay,
sir. Okay.
That's fine.
that's fine. Okay. As long as we got her nailed.
Mr. Longmore's up. Okay. Okay.
Proceed.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. The second public hearing tonight is the conditional use application 25-0035, the Southern Waves Dispensary. They're requesting a conditional use for use type 76A, a cannabis dispensary. The legal advertisement was printed on June 20th and 27th, 2025, in the Southern Maryland News. Certified mailings were sent to the adjacent property owners located within 200 feet of the project property, and public hearing sign was posted on the property on or before June 25th, 2025. Okay. The property owners are Reuben and Mary Lilly, and the property consists of 29,185 square feet, and it has an existing commercial building. Now, the property is located at 22805 Three Notch Road in California. The land use for the property is mixed use, medium intensity, and it is zoned medium intensity mixed use district, or MXM. Okay, the property is currently maintained as a commercial property, and the applicant is requesting the conditional use for a proposed 3,000 square foot cannabis dispensary. Now, the St. Mary's County Health Department, the Metropolitan Commission, Soil Conservation District, Maryland State Highway Administration, and the Fire Board had no objection to the proposal, and Land Use and Growth Management approval is pending the outcome of this hearing. Okay, now we have the site plan for the proposed dispensary. Okay, this is the existing conditions. We have the existing bank. Here's the entrance in. Right here is the donut connection, and here's the hotel. We've got a right in, right out, and behind it is the old railroad tracks. Okay. Now here's the proposal. All that is being changed outside is the signage. They'll have signage on the front, which states no loitering on the building, on the front and the sides. And they're making adjustments to the ADA parking and making it van accessible. Are there any questions for staff?
Anybody have any questions? Ms. Weaver?
Okay, so one of my questions is, it says it's mixed use.
Yes.
Okay, but it also says the property is located within the Lexington Park Development District, which supports this kind of development, and is the primary district in the area slated for commercial or similar development. So because it's in the Lexington Park Development area, is it really considered commercial?
Yes, we are encouraging development within the Lexington Park Development District, which is like an overlay, like the critical area overlay. It encourages the development within for commercial mixed use, we've seen apartments, we've seen other types of development within it, and that's what the mixed use means.
Okay, I guess I was thinking, is it considered mixed use for St. Mary's County, but considered commercial for Lexington Park development?
Okay. Mixed use for St. Mary's County, the mixed use is a zoning term that would explain that the different types of uses that would be allowed within it. It would be amenable to residential, commercial, and those types of uses. Whereas where you get into the rural preservation and it doesn't support so much of the commercial industry. The zoning is mapped in such a way that we concentrated it into what we call our development districts. And we encourage growth within those development districts. We've got, Lexington Park, the Charlotte Hall, Leonardtown, those type of development districts.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Well, you know me.
Sir?
The question I have is, did you, was this proposal provided to all the TEC activities?
Since it was in an existing structure, the ones that we provided it to were the ones that it would impact, such as Met Common Health Department for water and sewer,
But I believe
Fire Board.
I believe the ordinance indicates for a conditional use, you're supposed to send it out to all the TECs. I make that point. That's just all I'm referring to.
Okay.
I guess another question, and it goes back to also the last case. Section 6 seems to be nothing more than a repetition of the applicant's statements, okay?
Yes, sir.
Do we ever see statements in Section 6 that come from the staff?
Not at this point currently, sir. No, we do not.
I mean, isn't that really set up to be covered by staff? I mean, it seems to me that's,
At this point in time, that is not how it's addressed.
okay, I just wanted to know why or what was going on, okay? Mr. Longmore?
Oops. I
Got
apologize.
somebody,
Good evening, members of the board.
you have anybody with you, or?
We have a whole team here to answer questions as we go, but I'll be doing
Okay,
it.
I just didn't know if I needed to have them up here and swear them in now.
Probably as we go.
Okay,
If there's
very good.
questions for.
Keep me honest.
Thank you. So thank you again. For the record, Chris Longmore here on behalf of the applicant this evening for this conditional use application. I will introduce the members of the applicant that are here, as well as the other support members of our team that are here tonight, just so you're aware who's here and available for questions. Kathleen Hill, who's the founder of the applicant and has 11 years of experience in the regulated healthcare industry, is here. Quasi Johnson, who's the COO of the applicant. He's also the founder and COO of Jova Wellness Centers and has over 15 years of experience in regulated development similar to this kind. Kevin Gibbs, who's an investor and consultant with the applicant, is here, who has assisted in over 40 dispensaries across the country, including 5 different states and some in Maryland as well. And then for the engineering side, Anthony Olekson from COA Barrett is here if there's any questions on the site plan you have. And as Stacy mentioned at the beginning, Mike Lenhart of Lenhart Traffic Consulting is here for any questions you may have on the traffic. Before I get into the slides, just to touch on a couple of points that I'd like to put on the record and just share with you. I believe this may be the first conditional use dispensary application that's come before this board. One thing that I think is worth noting and that I need to note from my client is that as of June of last year, the state of Maryland passed a new statute relating to these dispensaries. And that statute has a provision, and it's cited in the staff report and in our initial letter, that essentially counties cannot put more restrictions on a cannabis dispensary use than they do on alcohol or liquor stores within a state. It prohibits any counties from enacting zoning ordinances that are more restrictive on those on cannabis than it would be on alcohol. One of the things that we feel is that and it has strong language in it that it can't be burdensome to the applicants and having to go through additional hearings, additional approvals. I don't believe this type of use for a alcohol beverage store would require conditional use. It's our position that under that state law that we should not be required to seek a conditional use. However, we've worked with the county. My client is very proud of their project. They have agreed with the county to go through the process. We think we meet all the requirements for this conditional use. And that is a disagreement that I have with the county attorney's office on that. But we've agreed to present it and come here tonight so the public can see what we're doing because, again, they're proud of their project. So I'll state that for the record so it's on the record. I'll also note that some of the regulations have changed since the county enacted its medical cannabis ordinance. You'll see references in both the staff report and in our letters that reference the current COMAR regulations, which are the ones that are applicable, and we'll kind of touch on those a little bit tonight. So that gives a little bit of framework of where we are. The staff report mentioned that all the agencies that have any say in this type of development in an existing facility have commented on this and have either approved it or have no objections to it. You saw the list of agencies there in the staff report. And I'll note that, and Ms. Weaver, I heard your questions before. To kind of summarize our position on that, the Lexington Park Development District is the primary area in the county according to both our overall comprehensive plan and the specific Lexington Park Development District plan, where the county has chosen to focus development. There are certain types of development that are allowed within the development district that are not allowed outside of it. There are certain zoning categories within the Lexington Park Development District, including MXM, that are not in other areas right now. It's the area where the county has focused on development, and as said, from a planning perspective, that's where we want new commercial uses. That's where we want more dense residential uses. That's where we want mixed-use properties that can be developed in a way that are in one location where the infrastructure is there to support it, like water and sewer and other infrastructure. And that's, I believe, the comment in the staff report, and that is why one of the standards is that it needs to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. That is very much a focus of the Lexington Park Development District plan to encourage development, including this type of commercial development in the Lexington Park Development District plan. Now, the MXM zoning district is the category of zoning of our property. It's mixed use, medium intensity is what it's referred to. What that zoning category does, like all the other ones, is there's the chart, I think it might be table 51, if I'm remembering it right, in the zoning ordinance, where there's a list of every use in the county, and there's all the zoning categories across the top, and it tells you what's allowed and what's not allowed in each zoning category. The mixed use does not mean that every parcel of property has to have a mix of uses. It means that in that district as a whole, there's a mix of uses that are allowed and encouraged within that. Our use is allowed in there as a conditional use the way our ordinance is written right now. So that's how, we believe and are supported by the overall comprehensive plan for what my client is proposing. The zoning category allows it as a conditional use. And there's a presumption that this use is consistent with the comprehensive plan if we can meet those conditions under Maryland law and under a zoning ordinance. And I think the legal staff will agree with me on that. So that's a little bit of framework of how we're here. I'll also note before I get into our slides, in addition to all the agencies supporting this, and generally the development district being where we want this type of use. There has been a strong preference in both before this board and the Planning Commission and the comprehensive plan overall to redevelop existing structures instead of building new structures. I know this board and many of you have said that at times, that you would prefer to see things that may otherwise go vacant or not be fully utilized to put development there instead of building new development further up 235 or in other areas. This is a redevelopment of an existing property, and we think that that is something that you should take into consideration. So with all that said, I'll run through our slides and run through the standards, and all of our team is here and available if there's any specific questions. I guess the last preliminary point, one thing that's a little unique is this is the only thing that we're seeking tonight is a conditional use approval. This is not a site plan approval like it would be before the Planning Commission or that it would be before you if we were appealing the Planning Commission on a site plan. This is simply whether this use is allowed and whether we meet the conditions that are part of that conditional use. Our engineer is here to answer any questions about the site plan. As Ms. Clements mentioned, not much is changing on the outside of this property, on the layout of it. There's some parking that's being made more ADA compatible for vans, but otherwise, there's not a great deal of change or new structures being built, but certainly if there's questions about it, Mr. Olixon's here to answer them. So
I understand exactly what you're saying. I'll certainly try to keep it along those lines. But there are some curiosity questions that I'm sure that we will all ask
certainly,
your people, okay?
And we're certainly here and available to answer them, you know, just kind of framing what we're here for. But if you have those questions, we're happy to answer. That's why we brought our whole team tonight, you know, instead of just me sitting up here asking for the use. We wanted everybody here so we could answer your questions. So if we go to the next slide, again, the summary of our request is we're asking for approval under Chapter 25. That's the conditional use chapter of the ordinance. The property is the existing commercial building that's located at 22805 Three Notch Road in California, Maryland. It was originally developed as a bank. I believe it was the County First Bank, was at least the original bank that occupied it. And it's been a real estate brokerage office more recently. And again, all the agencies that have reviewed it have approved of it or have no objection. Really, the last step that my client needs is the approval of the conditional use this evening. This is an aerial photo, a little more blown up of the property. You can see the property there in the center with kind of the blue dot on it from our search. Again, they'll be utilizing that existing building and not moving or adding on to any of the structures. Instead, there'll be some redevelopment inside to meet all of the state regulations for this type of use. There is a right in, right out directly on Route 235, so that you can go, I guess, south on 235 if that's the correct direction to state. And then there's also the access off of the road that goes up to the stoplight where Walmart is. So that's another access in and out of the property. The Donut Connection site is there, and the other building that used to be a real estate brokerage as well, and now I believe is a vape store, is that property there in front of it. So that gives you a little indication of where we are. BAE Systems, that was originally a Lowe's years ago, but has been BAE for some time, is directly across 235 there. This is just showing you the zoning of it, again, that this is in the MXM zone. You can see that there's a lot of that zoning around there. This is, I believe the next highest would be mixed use high intensity, which is, there's not a lot of that, but what there is in the development district. This is really the next use, and it's considered a pretty intense use when you look at the different uses in the Lexington Park Development District. This is just giving you a depiction of what the site is intended to be, to look like, to give you an elevation of kind of the intended design of it. Again, that building exists now. There'll be considerable work to freshen it up and to design it for the intended use. You can see the drive-through windows there on the left will be part of the use. There is a walk-up pickup window there in the middle of it, and then you'll see the doors to go into the lobby for the business there, along with the depiction of the type of signing they intend and the color scheme they intend to use for the property. Again, I don't know if that directly relates to our application, but we wanted to show you kind of what my client is intending for it so you could have it. And of course, they're here and available if you have questions relating to it. The site plan,
That slide, because I'll come back to it.
okay, yeah,
later.
we have these if you have any questions.
Can I ask a question before we get too far? I think there's a discrepancy between the staff report and slide 2 of your presentation.
Okay.
So I believe it says that all agencies approve, yeah, right there. So in the staff report, it says that the Department of Land Use is pending the outcome of this board. So is there a reason for that discrepancy there?
So land use, and Stacy can correct me if I'm wrong, the only thing that land use is waiting on is the approval of this board. So the land use department, Lugum, gives their own comments, and their own comments are positive in the staff report. They have a memo attached that says, schedule it as soon as we can before the Board of Appeals for this application. They have their own functions of portions of the project that they review. My understanding is that my client has met all of those requirements. They are also act, and I don't want to say this wrong, but they act almost as a clearinghouse or the agency that gathers all the other comments. And once every box is checked, they'll give the final approval. So Lugum's final approval is dependent upon this board approving the conditional use.
Okay, I just want to get the slide grabbed my attention because it said all agencies approve of. So I just wanted to make sure we got that clarification.
Yeah, and that's, and Stacy, was that correct the way I stated it? So we've met all the land uses requirements except for this board approving it tonight. Okay. So that's the only thing left. So thanks for asking that. I'm glad we clarified that. So again, we looked at the elevation. This is the layout plan, just to give you a sense of it. Again, none of the buildings are being changed. There's some slight changes to the parking, again, to make it more ADA accessible there in the front and van accessible for the property. It was developed originally, as I mentioned, as a bank. The bank had a drive-through window on there. It was designed for those traffic patterns to support that. So that's why really this is an ideal location to use an existing structure that will meet the needs of my clients and was kind of designed for the type of traffic flow that'll come through. I'll note that Mr. Lenhart, the traffic engineer, is on the line for questions if you have any. To summarize, and his report is in the letter that Mr. Kajeski submitted to the county as on board docs and as part of the record, addressing the specific conditional use standards we need to meet tonight. Mr. Lenhart looked at this. The use that it was approved for originally was the bank use. To summarize his report, and he can answer any specific questions. With the intended use of my client using only the bottom floor of this facility for their intended use, and that's the only thing it's designed for and the only thing they'll be allowed to use it for under the regulatory scheme that they must follow. That they'll be using about 2,000 square feet of the facility. In doing that, there'll actually be a little less traffic generated from this use than for the bank use that the property was originally approved for. So it'll actually be a little bit less. If you looked at it as if they were using 3,000 square feet of this building, it would be, I think, a couple more trips at the peak hours in the morning and then less trips at the peak hours in the evening, even if you were conservative and said because it's a 3,000 square foot building, we're going to be real conservative and look at those traffic numbers. 1,000 of those square feet is on a second floor. They will not be able to use that because of all the regulations of the state that require a waiting area, an area where they can serve their customers, a vault where they must store the product. So they will not be using the top floor. That's not part of the approvals they're seeking tonight. So that's an idea of the layout plan that we have. Now, as far as the conditional use goes, there's 8, the way conditional uses work is that there are 8 standards that any conditional use must meet in order to be approved by the county. These are the 8 that are in the staff report. As Mr. Brown, you mentioned, they took my letter and the explanations we gave of each of those 8 uses and of those 8 standards and why we believe we meet them. And those were included in the staff report. We believe that we meet all of those. I'll run through them and just highlight them very briefly so that it's in the record. But if you have questions of any of these, please let us know. The first is whether the conditional use complies with the standards of the district in which it's located and the standards applicable to that use. Again, this is in the Lexington Park Development District in the zoning category of MXM, where development is slated to be by our county, and we believe that we are fully compatible with both the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance provisions in seeking this evening. The second is the establishment and maintenance and operation of this use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, convenience, morals, order, or general welfare. That's where I highlighted in my letter, and I'll highlight again tonight, all of the agencies, and certainly Lugum has to give their final approval after tonight, but all of the agencies that look at those things like traffic, like water and sewer and health and safety, like the fire department, all of them have said they have no objection to this use being here. So we believe that we meet that and highlight those that are already in the record. That the conditional use will not be injurious to the use or enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity. This is a very highly regulated use. This is a use that, as a conditional use, is deemed to be presumed to be allowed to be here and will not have those injuries. It is in an existing building that is there. There will be no new development. The lighting is already there. The lighting's already been designed for the neighbors around it. All of the issues that would come up in a site plan were already addressed when this bank was originally built, and we believe that this use will fit in very nicely in that area and is compatible with the other uses nearby. That the proposed location will not have adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with this use. We think this is an ideal location for this, one, because of all the agencies say it's okay, but the other is that it's in a well-lit area, it's in a well-traveled area, it's not in an area that is on a back street somewhere, on a side street that will not have access where it can be seen and be visible and be safe. There's a lot of traffic there. There's a lot of people that go by there, and we think it's an ideal place to have this type of use so that it's in a nice, safe place. So we think that it'll be a good area for it. Number 5 is the adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other facilities. Again, that's really up to the agencies that have that expertise, and all of them approve it or support it this evening or have no objection to it. That adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress and egress that minimizes traffic congestion. I'll draw your attention again to Mr. Lenhart's report that is part of the record as part of Mr. Kujeski's original letter on this application. And also State Highway has approved this and has no objections to the use being there. The 7th standard is that the conditional use is not contrary to the goals, objectives, or policies of the comprehensive plan. Ms. Weaver, this goes back to the statements I was making about it being in the Lexington Park Development District Plan and the strong desire within that district to redevelop existing facilities if you can, instead of always trying to build new ones. So we think it complies with that. Also, because it's allowed in this zoning category, it's presumed to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, so for that reason as well. And then the other is that it complies with, in all other respects, with the applicable regulations of the district or any special requirements for this specific conditional use in Chapter 51. Again, this is an existing facility. The design was approved a long time ago as a site plan, and we believe that it does meet all of those standards. I'll draw your attention for the last couple of standards I'll go through. Again, relate to the letter that Mr. Kujeski had submitted originally with the application. And what that letter did, I mentioned at the beginning that every conditional use has to meet these 8 standards. When you have a conditional use, you look at the chart in our zoning ordinance, and you look at the use that we are in this application. And sometimes there are additional things that a conditional use must meet for that specific use. That's really what number 8 is referring to. The first of those, and I'll run through those general standards from Mr. Kujeski's letter. The first of those is that a general site plan approval is required. Again, Lugum has reviewed our site plan. It's an existing facility, so it's a lot less of a site plan than you'd need if you were building a brand new building. But it has been submitted, and Lugum has approved it based on their standards, subject to your approval tonight. The site plan has to conform with the requirements of COMAR. This was what I mentioned at the beginning, that the applicable COMAR section has changed since our zoning ordinance was adopted, this portion of it. It's COMAR 14.17.12.02. For the members of the audience or the public that are listening and for the board, COMAR is the Maryland Code of Regulations that the agencies adopt after our legislature puts laws into effect to enact them. I'll bring this provision up, and I have a copy of it if the board has any questions about it. There are very specific requirements that a dispensary of this type must meet in order to comply with Maryland law. My client has received their initial approval for the license subject to the final opening of it. They have a final one to get once this is approved tonight. There are very specific requirements about how the product can be handled, where it can be stored, about the security that must be in place for that. They need to meet all of those COMAR regulations in order to open this facility, in order to have the state-issued license that they had their preliminary approval for. They meet all of those, and there is a copy of that initial letter that was issued by the state that was attached to Mr. Kajeski's letter that, again, is part of the record. Proof of approval or pre-approval of all necessary licenses, again, that letter is attached, and they will have to receive all final approvals before the state of Maryland allows them to open their doors. And then it has certain requirements that the dispensary not be located within 500 feet of certain uses, including schools or daycare facilities or substance abuse facilities. There was an exhibit to Mr. Kajeski's letter that shows this. I believe staff's reviewed it and doesn't have any objections or disagreements with it. There are no such facilities within 500 feet of this proposed location.
Just barely.
Yeah, and there is one that's
6 feet, yep.
528 feet away.
Yep.
And it can't be within 500, so they meet the standard, is what I'd say as a lawyer. The other thing
No, I'm
I'll
just
say,
being facetious.
and I appreciate, the other thing that I notice is that it's all the way across 235 and kind of through another intersection. So it's not 500 linear feet down a sidewalk, so it's even further removed in a lot of ways from this location. It would be very hard to kind of walk over to this place from that facility, even though it does meet all the requirements. The sale of the products will be located within the building. Again, they need to meet all the COMAR regulations to do that. They meet all of those. The COMAR regulations encourage and allow for the drive-through windows the way my client will do it. There are very specific regulations on how they can deliver their products to their customers through those windows and who can do that and who is allowed to touch those. That's all part of that. And again, we meet all of those requirements within COMAR for doing that. There'll be no offensive odor emanating from this use that can be detectable to the public from outside the facility. All of the products are pre-packed and sealed. There'll be no odor emanating from this at all. They're all pre-packed products that people take and go to use in their personal preference. The outdoor signage must be limited to the trade name. My client has either finished the process or is going through the process to get a sign permit to replace the existing monument sign with their signage. They'll need that permit from the county in order to install that sign, and they're going to follow all rules to do that. And finally, as Ms. Clements mentioned, they are placing the no loitering signs on the site plan. And you'll see some of these things are, again, not necessarily required of liquor stores. And the county, in my opinion, is not allowed to impose things that are not required on that use, because that's what the state told us about a year ago. But my client is complying with all the standards that the county has said we want for these dispensaries. So we're actually going above and beyond what the state law requires, and we're meeting all of what the county wants us to do. So that's why we're very happy to be here. The next part of it just says it needs to meet all the limited standards for this use. That's another type of approval that some projects need. There are no limited standards for this use, so that's really just a placeholder in the ordinance. And then finally, we must demonstrate that it won't cause negative impacts to the vicinity due to traffic noise, offensive odor, and light pollution. A lot of that we've already touched upon. The traffic generation analysis done by Mr. Lenhart shows that there'll be very minimal impact at all to traffic, and during at least one of the peak hours, there'll be less traffic generated according to the study. There'll be no unique noise for this type of retail establishment. There's no offensive odor. As I mentioned, it'll all be pre-packed and sealed products that are being sold there, and no light pollution. It's an existing site with existing lighting. They're not proposing to change that or make it brighter in any way. And they'll certainly follow any of the building code requirements in order to finalize their permit to do the improvements on the structure. So for all those reasons, we think we meet all of the standards Mr. Kajeski's letter's in the record, my letter's in there, all the agency comments are there. The drawing showing the location from those other uses, the site plans are here, the elevations are here. Mr. Olson is here and can answer any questions you have about the site plan. Mr. Lenhart is here by Zoom if you have any questions about the traffic analysis he did. And other members of the applicant are here, primarily Quasi Johnson is here if you have questions about the operation of the facility or any of that as well. We want to answer any of your questions. I tried to limit my comments to the specific standards of the conditional use, but we want to be here if you have any questions for it. So that's my presentation.
So how do we want to handle this as far as Mr. Lenhart is on the horn, right?
That's correct. He's participating remotely by Zoom.
Anybody want to has any traffic questions?
I do.
If you do, then I guess I have to swear him in, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
Mr. Lenhart, you hear me? Maybe I don't have him. Mr. Lenhart, are you there?
Yep, speak up a little bit, Mr. Lenhart.
Or do you have to repeat it? Okay. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and for the record, would you state your name and address?
Yes, Michael Lenhart with Lenhart Traffic Consulting, 231 Naholes Road, Suite 250, Millersville, Maryland, 21108.
Okay. Did you want him to give any presentation, or did you want to
I just have
ask the
some-
questions? Okay.
Just have a few questions. Okay, so I am looking on page, well, it says marijuana dispensary, it says 882. And it's where it says time of day distribution for parking demand. Was this a new traffic study that was completed, or was this study based off of what the traffic was for the bank?
Let me repeat what page I think you're looking at. At
Yeah,
the
it's
top,
on-
it says land use 882 marijuana dispensary, and it says description. And the bottom, it actually says page 616, parking.
That is
generation.
correct.
Okay. This is a page out of the Institute for Transportation Engineers Parking Generation Manual. This was not anything that I produced. This was something I took directly from the ITE Parking Generation Manual, included it in this appendix for informational purposes. And so you can see they evaluated 6 study sites during the weekday, 2 study sites on a Saturday, 2 study sites on a Sunday. And if you look in the left-hand column, that gives you the time of day. And then as the columns go across, you have the weekday, the parking demand, Saturday parking demand, Sunday parking demand. And you can see that on a weekday, the parking occurs at 2 p.m. That's 100% of the parking is at 2 p.m. At 11 a.m., it's 92% parked. At 8 a.m., it's 30% parked. And so this is empirical data where they actually counted parked vehicles at those existing sites.
Okay, and then number 2, there's currently 16 parking sites at the facility where the bank was. I think that's what I read. Since it would be, like, say, during the weekday at 2 p.m., 100% of it is then currently used up all the spaces. Would there be need for increased parking?
No, there would not. The 2 p.m., it's 100% parked, but the peak parking, as identified in my report on Exhibit 3, which is, I think it's page 9 of the report, and I apologize, there are no but Exhibit 3 of the report shows that the peak parking would be 13 vehicles. So the maximum number of vehicles parked would be 13. There are 16 or 17 spaces.
I believe, Mike, the parking analysis 3.1 at the end, you have based on the IT empirical data, the site will be adequately parked with the existing 16 spaces. Yeah.
Right, so existing, there's 16 spaces. It would be maximum peak parking of 13 spaces. So at 2 p.m., if you go back to that other chart, 2 p.m. on a weekday, there would be 13 vehicles parked, and you would have 3 vacant spaces at that time. So there would not be a need for additional parking.
Okay. All right, those were my questions on the traffic. Thank you.
Does anybody else have questions of Mr. Lenhart?
No.
Looks like you're free to watch us.
All right, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions of the staff or not of the staff, but of the applicant and his staff?
I have some for Mr. Longmore there.
Okay.
Hey, sir, good evening. Question, I just want to make sure. Good evening. Sorry about that. This is going to be a dispensary, not processing there, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's a dispensary. And by no means am I an expert on this, but there's essentially 3 types of licenses relating to cannabis. One is a growing license, one is a processing license, which would be a different facility, and then the third is a dispensary. This would be a dispensary.
Yeah, the reason I asked that, because in the ordinance, there's a house that would be within 500 feet if you're processing.
Right, but this is not a process. This will solely be a dispensary, and the state licensing and Quasi or one of my other representatives of my clients can correct me if I'm wrong, but you would need a wholly separate license to do that. That they're not seeking approval for that. They don't intend to do that.
Okay.
The only state license that they're getting is a dispensary license for this location.
All right, thank you. And then you talked about this Maryland law, you can't treat them any different, the cannabis dispensaries, than alcohol. What about tobacco? Is it reference treating this different than tobacco or smoke or vape shops?
I have the statute. I can certainly submit it to you if you'd like. It specifically referenced that 2 things, that it cannot be you can't be unduly burdensome on this use compared to other uses is kind of one of the standards. The second one is that you also could not impose more restrictions than alcohol is what the state statute said. Okay. So I think part of that was that the state, and I don't want to surmise too much, but alcohol beverage locations are also pretty highly regulated. This is another highly regulated use. They did not want this to be regulated in a more burdensome way than the alcohol uses are allowed. That's what's referenced in the statute. I don't recall tobacco being in the statute, but I can double check.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is because if you go from Harris Teeter down to Gate 2 at the base, there's 7 vape smoke shops, and there's 5 gas stations that sell tobacco and chewing tobacco and snuff and dip and all that. All right, one last question for you. So I heard Mr. Leinhart, I'm not worried about the traffic. The parking, though, we talked about the dentist office and the car wash on Route 4235, how the dentist was worried people were going to park in his parking lot. What about as your client talked to their neighbors, which would be the donut shop, Donut Connection, and the smoke shop, about if they do ever have too many cars, not to impose on their businesses?
I don't know if they've had specific conversations. I can ask Quasi or
Whoops, we'll have to swear you in.
Or it's just, we'll get to him later, so you don't know,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head if they're.
Thank you.
Cramps,
Okay.
my legs and
You need to
hands.
get up, wait a minute, do you need to get up and walk, or?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Do we want to take
Okay.
a recess?
Understand.
I'm done, sir.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
Now,
Mr. Brown?
no, do you have a question of these client?
Yeah, well, they can swear in later. When
Do you want me to
call.
bring them up and swear them in?
Quasi, why don't you come up and we can speak to that?
Can we consider a recess since Mr. Brown
Well,
has?
do you want to can we do a 5-minute?
Certainly.
Mr. Payne needs to do some walking. Can we do a 5-minute
Thank you.
recess?
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. I believe where we left off, need to swear both of you gentlemen in. Get you to stand, please, and it's, do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And for the record, will you, each one of you, state your name and your address?
Kevin Gibbs, 18519 Rushbrook Drive, Olney, Maryland. Quasi Johnson, 4005 Bayer Street, Capitol Heights, Maryland.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody now, any questions?
This was the one you had.
Oh, wait, what was the question one?
Yeah, you had the, and I'm sorry, it escapes me for a second. The question about if the parking got filled up in the
Yeah,
neighboring
right.
property, so.
So we're going to have a very modest-sized sales floor. We're going to rely heavily on the drive-through to relieve some of that parking if it could become an issue. So we don't foresee that being an issue parking-wise at all. 2-lane drive-through, possibly 3, as well as the walk-up window, we think will more than alleviate any parking issues.
All right, I would recommend you do talk to him. Okay, and then for Mr. Longmore, I understand reusing buildings and things like that, and it's a nice place and all that, but why that place? Because there's places over near Marshall's and Asahi, there used to be health clinics, and I was just wondering, because there's a vault in that place, you have to lock this stuff up, or why did we pick that place?
I mean, I didn't pick it, these guys did, so it might be a
Okay.
better question for, Kevin, maybe if you want to.
Sure, I'll take that question. Yeah, the vault was absolutely a big bonus for that building. I've developed 40 of these across the country. As Quasi mentioned, the drive-through will be a strong component of our business. We like the visibility from 235, and the standalone bank buildings have been buildings we've used in 5 different states to build dispensaries in.
All right, so it sounds like that's a good business decision, is why you picked that, not somewhere else. All right, I'm good, Mr. Vice Chairman, I'm good, sir.
Say again?
Done asking questions.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Ms. Weaver?
Okay, I have a question. So you meet the COMAR regulations with it not being within 500 feet of a school, a daycare, or a substance abuse treatment facility. Could you please address, there was a concern from a citizen that said that there is a school bus stop, I guess, across the street. But from what I could see, I couldn't find anything in the COMAR regulations, nor do I think it's within the 500 feet. But could you please address that concern?
Sure, I'd be happy to then jump in if you all have any other comments. I agree wholeheartedly. It's not either in the COMAR regulations or our county ordinance that's a requirement to look at any potential bus stops. I know the bus stops for schools sometimes change from year to year, so that'd be difficult to do, as well, because they do change based on the needs and the uses of it. The other thing I'll mention, and this is part of what I alluded to, in the closest daycare or educational facility that's about 530 feet away. It's across Route 235. It's across 6 lanes of traffic and another traffic light. Even though it's not a requirement to take those into consideration, we don't think that this will have any adverse effect on that stop in any way, either in terms of traffic or in terms of any concerns about children being dropped off there or being picked up there, because it really is across that road. My office is not far from here. To cross that road is really a unique. It's almost like you're on different sides of the tracks when you're across Route 235. So we really don't think that'll have any negative impact at all. And I don't know if you guys have.
And to the extent, well, look, we want to be good neighbors, and we will be good neighbors. We've done that across the country, and we are happy to do anything that we can to alleviate any concerns that people may have, and to act, as good teammates with people in the community to make sure the experience is good for everybody.
Okay. Now, I don't know if this is really something you can address or not. Let's say I want to open up a daycare now, and I decide that I want to put it in like a building that now is within the 500 feet. This would not have any, they would tell me no versus saying, now you have to shut down.
I think Mr. Scott's prepared to answer that question.
Yeah, the proximity to the listed uses which would affect the location of this use are determined and measured as of the date of this application and our order and the permitting of the site. So if there's a change in land use after this, assuming we approve it, then that does not require this use to be discontinued or moved.
Okay.
Yeah.
In other words, it would actually sort of prevent the other activity from coming in, probably, right?
That's possible. I'm not sure how Lugum would look at that. Mr. Hauser will enlighten us.
The way that would be looked at is the reason those buffers are, the idea is you're protecting the daycare, the school, the residents, whatever the case might be, from the facility. If we've got a facility that exists there on the date that the daycare wants to come in and the daycare wants to assume that risk of going in there, the setbacks aren't within the use standards that apply to the daycare. So if they want to come in knowing what they're coming into, that would be their right, and we wouldn't hold them against that. For what it is worth, that kind of an elementary, just something you assume on background. The state law goes one step further, and when they talk about their distance restrictions, they make that explicit and say that the setbacks only apply to any pre-existing daycares, schools, etc.
Okay, that was, because I guess I was concerned if they go ahead and open this facility, and now somebody says, well, I really don't want it there, so I'm going to open up a daycare, and then that impacts on their business.
No, with respect to a cannabis facility, once they have, footings in the ground or a validly issued permit, once their right is vested, a subsequent land use development can't divest them of that right to continue their operations in the form they were originally licensed. And it wouldn't apply to a daycare or other use that wants to start up because the standards just don't attach or aren't applied to review of their site plan if they want to come in, because the setbacks are only good on the site plan review of the cannabis facility. Wouldn't attach for the daycare down the road.
Okay.
In other words, you can't open up a park, you can't open up a daycare after the fact and defeat either use that way.
Okay, that's what I was asking, making sure that somebody else now that maybe did not want that there, that now they're opening up something and then it impacts on their business.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I've got several. Since it's medical dispensary, what kind of training do you have to have? What are the qualifications to medical wise?
Medically wise?
Yeah.
Well,
None?
we are going to have medical patients. We're also going to have adult use patients.
No, I mean the business, not, okay. Do they have to show you a card?
If they're medical patients, yes,
Yes.
they do. But you also have to just be 21 and over to purchase for adult use. So they're both.
So you're selling recreational?
Correct. And medical, yes.
Well, are you going to be selling THC?
Correct, yes.
So you're going to be in competition with the other place right next to you?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. I do know that the one, they have another one of those places. I don't know. What do they do? Do they just go in there and smoke?
No, there's...
Excuse me. Are you asking about what happens in the vape shop?
What's that?
Are you asking what happens in the vape shop, or are you asking what happens in our dispensary?
No, I'm asking about what happens in a vape shop.
Oh.
I wouldn't know.
I don't know either. I know that our facility and our license, heavily regulated, heavily tested, heavily compliant with the state of Maryland. We are the most regulated in this industry on the
Okay, but
dispensary side.
you don't have any, even though it's medical, you don't have any medical training. No one has to have medical training.
That's correct. But we have a existing dispensary in Camp Springs, Maryland. We have a highly trained staff there, and we are actually some of those staff members will be running our dispensary here in Lexington Park. They've got 5 to 10 years of experience, working in a medical dispensary that was then transitioned to an adult use dispensary to serve both patients, adult use patients and medical patients.
Okay. I do know that it's a vape shop down there by ABC. And most of the people that go in there are barred from going into the ABC because of the way they conduct themselves.
It's a lot less regulated industry. That's true.
Yeah, the vape industry is much less regulated than
Oh, yes.
dispensary that we're
And-
proposing.
Oh, yeah, and, a lot of panhandling and stuff like that, too. And, the Hiker-Biker Trail, right in back of it, I've walked down there because I had to one night because it was a thunderstorm. And there's a lot of people hanging around that. So I don't know what they were doing, but, I wasn't going to go out and shake hands with everybody. Yeah. I was getting from point A to point B as fast as I could. Loitering sign. Whose idea was that? I mean, is that, if businesses have signs on there, no hanging around. That's not a welcoming situation.
Yeah, that, and y'all can address how you handle it at other facilities. That was one of the requirements in our county zoning ordinance.
Okay.
That the commissioners adopted to include at dispensaries.
Is it
I
gonna
don't believe
be
it's
under
in
the
the
big
state
sign?
regulations. I may be wrong, but I don't know that it's in the state regulations, but my clients have agreed to follow that because that was
Okay.
one of the requirements the county had.
So then all they have to do is to get them off the premises, make a couple of calls.
Well, they have that and these and you guys can touch on any of it that you want. They're within the COMAR regulations. In addition to a lot of the other requirements, there are very specific security requirements for this type of use, including video surveillance and other requirements that are required to be there as a condition of their license to do it. So again, that's an
Okay.
example of how this is so much more highly regulated than other uses.
You're gonna have security personnel on the building?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, do you want to touch on that a little bit about?
No, we will not. And quite frankly, the experience that the customer will have will be, a very open, inclusive experience. We don't want customers, and again, I open 40 or 50 of these across the country. We very rarely use security, unless we're in very tough neighborhoods. This is a normal activity for tens of millions of Americans. They know the product types that they want. They walk in, they get their product, they get in their car, and they drive home. 45% of our customers will be over 60 years of age, inside the dispensary. And again, the state of Maryland, very, very tough with their inspections. We have, a local inspector that will come in once a month, once every 2 months, walk through. We're required to, keep a certain amount of video surveillance stored so that the state can tap into our cameras to make sure that, everything is going as it's supposed to go inside the dispensary. So it's a very, heavily regulated business.
Well, is the goal to help people or just keep them from going down to Great Mills Road and dealing with 500 different people that sell drugs.
Well, I think, this is maybe a little different question than the conditional use, but I'm just going to give you my personal opinion. I think it's important for every state. The illegal market is massive. And,
Sure.
in states that do not have adult use programs, you have higher use of opioids, higher fentanyl overdoses. And so to give people who are going to buy this on the illegal market a safe, regulated, tested product keeps your population a lot safer. I mean, you can see in studies the deaths from opioids plunge when you have a regulated program in your state. And so I would say that instead of the illegal market is being, funded by China and Mexico. So everybody that's buying in the illegal market is funding drug companies in those two countries. When you create an adult use program in your state, the state gets a tax revenue and your citizens get a safe, regulated, tested product. Now that's, I'm not talking about vape shops. I'm talking about licensed dispensaries in the state of Maryland.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, they have to have some teeth in the law.
Yep.
Got any more?
One other thing, a couple other things. Got this staff review from Amber Thompson. When the proposed use of an existing building is significantly different from the former use, the existing building must be upgraded to provide adequate safety for the occupants of proposed use. Okay, well, when it switched over from a bank to a real estate office, that didn't apply?
I believe that same standard would apply, that the use by the new use in it would have to comply with safety standards at that point. They would not have to come to this board and ask for a conditional use, because it would be a use that does not require a conditional use. It would be a permitted use in the zone. So they can go in and just get a permit
Okay.
from the county to do that. The way I believe this memo, and Stacy or other staff can correct me if I'm wrong, was kind of included. Once it was informational to us, but secondarily kind of describing the type of approvals they'll need when you're going into an existing building, and changing your use versus building a brand new building where you need a whole concept site plan review. I think this was more informational for the board for what my client has had to go through to get their permit. And again, our understanding is that we've met all the requirements of the county other than getting this final conditional use approval. So they've gone through all those.
Yeah, I
reviews.
can think of one other case where a bank switched over to an accounting firm and up at 6.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I remember.
And my wife deals with them, but she always sends me up there. Horrible place to get in and out of.
I think I know the one you're talking about. I know it's kind of set back there.
If that was on the table, I'd exercise the no vote. No question about it. Okay, I think that's.
Okay, anybody else before I get into my list of kind of touring the neighborhood?
I've got a couple. So I appreciate the entrepreneurship. There's a business relationship there, and I know you've got some experience opening some of these. So the questions here, and I don't want to speak for the other board members, but we live here, we care about the community, so that's the basis for a lot of our questions, right? So it's not just about opening up a building that's vacant, it's about what kind of activity is that going to attract, right? So the clientele may be 65 and older, but who's lurking outside, right? So with that being said, I know Mr. Payne took the words out of my mouth. I was thinking about, why not have a security guard there? It was a bank. I guarantee there was a security guard that worked there. It's not necessarily just because it's a rough neighborhood. I was born and raised in Detroit. I understand. But, with it also, it's just a kind of a safety thing, that you have a security guard there. Why not consider it? Yeah, maybe somebody on payroll, but you have somebody there. Just something to think about. A few other things I know you also mentioned the loitering sign. That caught my eye too, but you know, it's not welcoming, but it also doesn't repel anybody. So there's got to be some other measures that we probably should think about as far as what we're going to be doing there. And then the other thing that I wasn't going to ask a question, and then I wasn't, and then I just want to bring it up. And I know that this is part of the thing that the basis of the question here is the condition of the building that was a bank and now it's going to be a dispensary, and it's that no offensive odor will be emanated from the business. All products are pre-packed and sealed. And so my question is the intentions that everything that shows up to the dispensary is already pre-packaged in the manner that it will be sold? So no repackaging will occur in the dispensary whatsoever. Shows up in the packaging exactly how it will be delivered to the customer.
That's correct.
Okay, so there will be no intentions of smaller packages happening, no free samples, nothing like that occurs in the dispensary?
That's correct.
Okay, and then was there any kind of modifications that was required in any of these? I know you have experience, so I don't know if this question is for one of you, but I've got some real estate development in my history, so you know there's times I've had to do overhaul on buildings that met the need. So are you going to have to do any kind of massive overhaul with ventilation systems that recirc versus pump to the outside because of what it smells like inside? I know they're packaged, and I don't frequent those facilities, but you know I've got some 65 and older family that have described to me the medical grade potency, so I know that it's can be a little stronger odor in there. So is that something that you have to do? I honestly don't know. I'm asking.
No, we do not. The only thing that's unique from a environmental standpoint is in the vault. We have to be very careful with humidity control inside the vault to make sure that the product maintains its condition.
Okay, I think that's all for my questions, sir.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. I guess the first question is, how do you go about selling it to the customer? I see the pictures where you've got a car driving up, okay, or going to a window like it was a ATM machine. Do you have customers coming into the house or into the building to take a look around like you would in an alcohol beverage store? Or do you, or is it everybody kind of got to know but what they want and have to go to a window? I mean, how is the operation going to work? I realize it's a field, but bear with me. I think a lot of people would like to know how you're going to work this thing, okay?
I will go high level and let Quasi take the more granular pieces of the operation. So you'll be able to purchase a product three ways. You'll be able to come onto the sales floor and into the dispensary and buy from our point of sale bud tenders.
You mean like sending the money back and forth when you're in a drive-in? Is that what you're talking about?
No, you'll come just like you would
inside. Okay.
Right inside.
Okay.
There's also a pickup window, so you can pre-order online, and they'll have it waiting for you at the pickup window. And there's a process you go through that the state mandates to identify yourself. It has to be on video camera, and then you can get your product through the pickup window. And then you can also pre-order and go through the drive-through, where we have, there's basically a shelving system with the orders placed on the shelving system. And as you go to the drive-through, we pick the order, and it goes through the drive-through to the customer.
But you have to show ID and proof like you would in a bank before you do this?
Correct. There's a pretty extensive identification process and cameras to verify
Now,
transaction.
What are your planned hours of operation?
9 a.m. to 9 p.m. The state allows us 12 hours of operation.
7 days a week?
Yes.
So right now you're planning 9 to 9?
Correct.
And are you restricted on those hours? In other words, by the state?
Yes.
In other words, you can't run a 24/7 operation?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we understand what's going on there. Okay, the legal sales requirements. I think you mentioned it earlier. You have to be of a certain age?
Correct, 21 and over.
You have to be 21 and older. Okay, and
if I may add, there also is an extensive system that ties into the state's database that only allows certain levels of purchases over a period of time for the customers, and also limits potency for the customers.
That's a state database, and it's not just
It's a state-run
any or all different stores around the state.
Every dispenser, again, now we're heavily regulated, so every
Okay, I
dispensary in the
understand.
state of Maryland ties into this system, and this system so you are, if it flags somebody if the potency's too high, if they've purchased too much in a set period of time, and you can't transact with that customer.
Okay. That's very interesting. Who really enforces this? So in other words, locally, when it's the alcohol, you have the alcohol board and a sheriff assigned to them, and they go in and, shall we say, bait or whatever the stores to see if not they'll sell. Will the local sheriff be doing that, or does you have to wait for the state to do this? How is this going to be, shall we say, enforced?
So again, I'll go high level. Maryland Cannabis Administration was recently moved into, and I don't know the exact terminology, but it's the entity at the state level that oversees alcohol and tobacco. So that's correct.
Correct.
So that agency and their inspectors will be enforcing all the different regulations that we must adhere to in order to keep our license active.
Yeah, but as far as saying whether or not you're selling or some of your clerks are selling to underage people, how is that enforced? We know how it's done with the alcohol. I just didn't know if it's done that same way. In other words, the local sheriff would be coming into your place, or is there some other means of ensuring that you're, shall we say, checking the IDs? Okay.
Well, remember the state system will everything's inputted into the state system when you go into transact, and so you'll have a state system that will flag if there's an identification. I mean, you got to show your driver's license. So you show your driver's license.
So
and
what you're telling me is I have to put you're using the ID and it's inputted into a system. Okay. And of course, it's almost like buying a rifle or something, but you're putting it into the system, and then you get the flag whether it's yes or no.
Correct.
Okay.
Go time.
Quasi, you want
to
to
me,
add
it's very. I realize it has nothing to do with why you're here, but I think it's very interesting for everybody to understand. Okay.
Add that system responds in real time, so it's a give and go transaction when showing your ID.
If you pay your electric bill, that is.
And our IT bill, everything.
Do you have any comments about the letter that Jonathan Plew wrote regarding we may have pre-discussed it, but I'm just going to ask it again as one of my list of questions. He was the one individual that wrote the letter, if you understand.
Absolutely.
I didn't know if you all had any comment about that, and I'm just leaving it open to if you want to or not.
No, I would just go back to what we had said earlier, is that we want to be good neighbors, we want to be good members of the community, and to the extent that we can help with concerns or issues that come up, we will 100% do that.
Will your emails and cell numbers be available to call you when you get some irate neighbors? Because I'm sure there's some that will be there, okay, somewhere down the line.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
One last thing. In preparing this proposal, did you ever interface with the school system?
No.
Okay. So basically, you were just determining it based on what you knew from the circle of what people were doing, the geographical.
What was legal under Maryland state regulations?
Yeah, I know, but you had to know where they were, is my question. And so you had to get that information from somewhere. I just didn't know where you got it from.
Our engineer.
Which one?
Our engineer.
Somebody looked it up for you.
Right.
Correct.
And you don't know. Okay, I just admit it. I don't know if have I prompted any other questions from anybody?
Just a comment from me. I know he mentioned it as far as being good neighbors, and you did as well. But diplomacy is and it's so valuable. right? So there's minimum legal standards, and then there's going above and beyond, just to be, contributing members of society and in the community, right? And I'm not saying to go out and spend extra money to do so, but he brought up a good thing, interfacing with the school, just to make sure that you're advocating for yourselves, and that yes, you may be abiding by the bounds of a minimum legal threshold, but you can go a lot further in the community, just to kind of make sure that you're going that extra step. That's just my comment, not a legal thing, just a comment.
And we will be happy to
We'll do
to
that.
reach out to the schools so that they can get in touch with us easily if there are issues, and we will work with them hand in hand. That's not an issue at all.
I think now that's time to, you all have finished as far as your presentation for now.
Could I just add one other
Thing.
Oh, sorry.
These drive-throughs, could you explain their use again?
Sure. It's just going to be another way for our customers to be able to purchase. And we're going to have 2 drive-throughs initially, with the possibility of a 3rd lane. That'll help with the flow and the access for folks. So you pull up, go around the building into the drive-through. We're thinking of even having like a Chick-fil-A style, where there's an agent, one of our employees out there with an iPad, taking orders, facilitating the transactions. It'll be a very smooth and quick process for folks.
So it's not really a drive-through then, it's another parking spot.
Well, I would say most of the drive-through is online orders. So people order online on their phone, and they come and they're stacked on a shelf, and we literally have a picker. Picker brings it to the window. The guy at the window checks everything, makes sure it's legal, and then hands the package to the customer.
That's if you're right next to the window, right?
No, you would order. Most customers know what they want in advance, so they'll order online.
Yeah.
And so the order's filled before they even get to the store.
Okay.
And so it's sitting. The order's literally sitting, in a bag on a shelf. And so as that customer comes around, identify the customer, grab the bag, hand it to the customer, and then he departs the.
Well, does it work like a bank used to?
I would say it's a lot quicker than a bank. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I'm still confused now with what you're saying. Yeah.
The product is small enough that it can be in one of those, you're going to do it like the tube
Yeah.
scenario? I think that's what he's asking.
Yeah.
So most of it can go through a tube. If it can't, we have a door where one of our employees can walk it out to the car. But most of the transactions, we'll very, very rarely have enough velocity in the drive-through to use both of those. Most of the transactions will happen right at that initial window.
So if you're using a tube, how do you verify face to ID?
Through the camera system.
Okay.
There's a camera that looks right at the driver, so the driver shows the ID right to the camera, and that's how we verify. But the ID also has to come into when you put a deposit in.
Yeah, I remember. I know what he was asking. I was thinking about that earlier. That's very interesting because the photo, I couldn't really tell from the photo. One of them, they kind of look like walk-ups, like Chick-fil-A. But I was also thinking about that, putting it in a tube. Well, how are you verifying that is the person? So
the ID will come through the tube. The camera will verify the person that's actually in the car. Does that make sense?
Mr. Scott, liquor stores used to have drive-through windows, and then what happened there? They tried to do away with them, or they were kind of grandfathered in, and then if they changed, if the business went defunct, the drive-through window was no longer be able to be used.
So, a liquor store, to my knowledge, I think we still do have drive-through windows, don't we?
Yeah, but isn't that grandfathered? Like Duke's Bar.
No, well, you don't confuse a sealed container with a mixed drink like we used to get.
Oh, I
okay?
see. I see.
To mix
Okay.
it in your-
Yeah. 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 That's gone. That's gone by the way.
Yeah, that's gone. Okay.
I had actually looked this up, Mr. Payne, and I can't bring up the alcohol beverages article section in there, but it in there is in state law that, and I can't remember the exact date, but after such a time, you could not have drive-throughs for liquor stores licensed by the state, by the ABBs after such and such a point, but that existing drive-throughs at that point were grandfathered in about 3 or 4 minutes if we care to look into it. I could probably find the site. I don't remember if it's state or a local thing that's in the state article.
Well,
That stuff it.
Does that apply to this product?
So again, that is a restriction on liquor stores. That's not coming from our ordinance on the cannabis. County attorney's position is that the enforceable set of regulations we are looking at is the ordinance passed in 2022 for the cannabis ordinances. That doesn't say anything about drive-throughs and doesn't include a prohibition. So I think the reality, the state's acknowledgement that you could set standards, or if we wanted to make a new ordinance, could apply, and we could do anything that's against our liquor stores, doesn't help us, doesn't give us the right to read that into an ordinance that doesn't have it already, if that's making sense to you. Short answer, it's not in our cannabis ordinance, so no.
Okay. Thank you.
And the COMAR regulation that regulates the cannabis industry specifically provides for drive-through windows and the regulations that must be applied to that. So in the provision that's cited in Mr. Kajeski's letter, there are specific rules that they have to meet, so when they're inspected, if they're not meeting them, that's when they get in trouble with their license. So it's very highly regulated
Okay.
to do that.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Have we all at this group finished our, okay. So now the board will now open the hearing for public testimony, okay? And I'll just take the list I've got here and go down if I can read the writing and pronounce it properly. Is there a Sadia or what, Anima or something like that? Would you like to come forward? And would you please raise your hand and do you find my words here, do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Yes. And would you please, for the record, state your name and your address?
Sadia Chima, the address 44063 Sycamore Lane, California, Maryland.
Okay.
I just want to tell you that I just moved here with my 3 kids like a year ago. We just bought a house, and now we always go to Dunkin' Donuts, the places we walk around. So knowing that there's a dispensary with the kids, it's kind of like this is a family-oriented area. So having a dispensary, I'm not sure how it will impact our kids.
Now the question is?
So we are against having dispensary in this neighborhood. I am.
Do you live in the
Question, you
neighborhood
wanna come
behind
back
there?
later and answer,
So
try
we
to
live like
address some of these that way?
a mile or two.
No, but do you live directly behind where the dispensary and donut connection is? There's a neighborhood there by Walmart. Is it that neighborhood?
Yes, like maybe like a mile away.
Okay.
It takes me like 2 minutes on the car to get there. I don't know exactly how many miles,
Okay.
but I think it's like short distance. But the kids will be going to the schools and things like that. They're young right now, so seeing that dispensary, bus stop, all of that, so I think that can impact.
Do you want to, Councilor Hunter, do you want to make any comments now, or should we sum it up later?
It might be easier to sum, because there might
Talk
be
now,
some,
each.
sum it up
give,
at the
give
end.
some sort of,
What's that?
you want to give some sort of comment now at this, as we, so I'm trying to make sure we get some answers to the people.
Sure.
Whether they like the answers or not, it's the idea of let's address their questions.
Sure. And you all can jump in if there's something you'd like to comment on. You know, respectfully, I think it's our thought and position and belief that this will not adversely affect. It'll serve a good deal of the community. It will not adversely affect neighborhoods that are a mile away, and it won't have those. It's another allowed regulated business in our state that the state has said is allowed and should be allowed and can't be more restricted than other businesses. We don't see how this will be harmful. We think it'll be a service for our community. There's a lot of people in our community that purchase these products now. They have to go to Solomon's to get them. They have to go up to Mechanicsville to get them. It'll serve a need within our community. As Kevin mentioned, a lot of them are in an age group that'll be very convenient for them to be closer than having to make those drives to get what they need for their comfort and other reasons.
So do we agree? I take it what we're hearing is agree to disagree. Is that correct?
I think so.
I'm talking.
Certainly, we respect everybody's
Okay,
opinion.
but I was talking really to the lady who's asking the question.
I mean, yes, it's easy access, but easy access to everyone. I'm pretty sure there will be teenagers getting there too, like 21 or less will be there, getting their parents' ID. You know, they can easily misuse it. We have seen. We see every.
The question is about IDs, and I think that's what you all were shaking your heads at. Can you address why? Try to help her out and satisfy why the fake IDs won't work in your system.
Right. We have a highly regulated system that ties back into a state database. And so we would lose our license if we were to serve a customer that's underage. And I would also say that we are much more. You want me talking to the microphone or talk directly to?
Well, talking to the microphone because they're recording it and the people are on TV.
Right.
And I would also say that we are much more heavily regulated than a vape shop. And a vape shop currently exists there. And I don't know if you have the same concerns about the vape shop, but I would say that dispensaries have a much more strict oversight from the state of Maryland. We've got inspectors. We have our product is much more heavily tested. It's much more heavily regulated. It's much more heavily taxed. So you know, if I would ask you, are you concerned about the vape shop as well?
No. Well,
vape shops, cigarettes, like.
I think we really have to confine it to this issue here.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, they're just right next
as
to
opposed to the vape and
already. So I just wanted to make sure.
I understand, but I mean, we can really get astray here if we're not careful.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, has this ever failed?
No.
This fail-safe program of yours, has it ever failed?
No.
And how long have you been in this type
Well,
of business?
we've owned over 40 dispensaries across the country since 2017. I mean, if you sold to an underage person, you would lose your license. The licenses are incredibly valuable.
Yeah, but you're saying, okay, so you said since 2017, that's 8 years, you've never had a violation.
We've never sold to an underage customer.
Okay, have you ever had a violation?
We have not. Well, when you say violations, you mean your parking lot needed to be restriped, or do you mean like the state has shut you down, or the state has fined you? We've never had a fine from the state.
Fights and stuff like that.
No.
Mm-mm. Well, loitering.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're trying to address your question. I don't know if it's satisfactory or not, but
and I would just continue to add that we're good neighbors and we're good stewards of the license that the state has entrusted us with, and we do not hide from the neighborhood. And concerns or problems that come up, you will be talking to Kathlena and Quasi and myself about those problems.
Okay, thank you.
well, make sure you get their
It's
phone
no
and,
problem
and
at all.
email addresses. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next person would be Ms. Patel, or what is it? Something. Mr. Patel. Okay. Yes, sir. Swear you in. We say, do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, sir.
And for your record, your name and your address.
Yes, my name is Upesh Patel, and my address is 45860 Morningdale Court, Great Mill, 20634. And currently, I am a next door owner, Donut Connection. I have several things to discuss. I hear everything what you guys have and what they explain to open up this new facility. Mr. Lawnmore repeatedly said in his half an hour of the lecture what he presented in his presentation about all the agencies has approved, all the agencies has approved, all the agencies has approved several times, but the Logum has not approved it. There could be some reason why the Logum has not approved it and left it on the board to decide or the public to decide, public hearing, why they don't want this facility not to be come in this place, in this, which was previously a bank, which was zoning perfect for that. After that, if you switch over to the Codewell bankers, nobody would have any objection for that type of business. But as a next door neighbor, if you ask me, do I need that facility there? I would say no. It's totally different type of business. And when I heard and I saw the sign outside in the garden with this public hearing, I made my mind to come here and say something. This type of, no matter how much security these people, when they're going to open, is this 24/7, what the guarantee they do, who's going to watch that? Who is going to say that, who is passing on to minors? They check the ID out inside when they pass it, then outside they sell. In my business also, I called police several times. When they purchase a cigarette, in my store, we sell cigarettes. We have a license to sell cigarettes. When we sell the cigarettes, I make sure that adult is not passing, but it's out of my control. When I see it, I tell officers, sir, this is what happened. They are helpless. What if this bad smoke they do outside in the premises? They take care of their sites. They sell it with their law. They keep him secure. They sell the check ID, school, whatever the system. They allow them to check it. But what is after? They can come in my parking lot. Everything is connected. And plus, just like the liquor board, when you open a new liquor business, you go out to the community. If you really care for the community, then you just go out to them and check for the school board, check for the churches, daycare. Do they want this business really? You get the signs from the different owners. They live in their house. Get the signature on the signature card. Ask them to go to knock the doors and ask the signature of the different businesses, different households. This is coming here. Do you really want it? So all this needs to be done prior to approve this, please. I'm requesting the board to look into all this. All agencies, they are like a water and sewer. That has nothing to do with the type of business changes. If that is other business, this business or other business, that has nothing to do with the sewer line. That has nothing to do with the MatCom. But other thing, this is a serious type of business. I myself is, when the people come with a heavily hot, high dose and they smoke, I can't even breathe. And I know guaranteed that sooner or later I have to live into that type of environment. I'm running my business there.
I hear you. All I can say is make sure you get to know these gentlemen. Be aware that this board is here to address the conditional use requirements as specified, okay? If there's anything that we can do relative to those conditions, we will try to help. But where I'm coming from is, basically, the state has laid out requirements, the county has laid out requirements. They think they have met those requirements. The Lugum thinks they have met those requirements. It is really for us to listen to you and make sure that there isn't something that's fallen through the cracks. And that's what I really want to make sure we hear here. But we understand that stuff happens, okay? But please, please get to know your neighbors if this is approved, okay? That will go a long way to helping you. I know that many of the other board members will say that.
Yeah, and we will, absolutely. We will be happy to give our address, our email addresses and our cell phone numbers, and we will be good neighbors, I promise you. Look, the proof will be as we operate, but I can assure you we will be good neighbors, and you will have direct access to the ownership group.
So bottom line is just what I have to say, I just said, is all up to
Well,
you
I
guys.
mean, your concern is there.
The conditional use of it to let them open the business, and if they meet the conditional requirement, which you cannot stop them to open it, I am helpless. Whatever I said
No,
is,
you're not, no, sir.
I'm really don't like it, but it's all up to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of this gentleman?
No.
Okay. The next person would be, what is it, Ally, what is it, Tanner or? Okay. Thank you. Very good. Let me swear you in. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And for the record, your name and your address.
Yes, my name is Ali Tanvir. I live in Pennsylvania, but I have family members who live here, and they asked me to come speak on their behalf. Basically, we're extremely concerned about what's going to be happening over there. We saw the agencies being mentioned. I did not see any allusions to law enforcement being consulted or notified or anything like that. There's a motel right next to the place, and you can go on Google reviews right now, and there are multiple reviews of people complaining about intense marijuana smoke within the lobby, people hanging out over there at all hours, and I think that is going to get significantly worse with this facility being so close, and it's just going to have an extremely negative impact on the entire neighborhood, right? It's not just safe use within the building itself, and having a great experience for the customer. It's what are your customers doing right after they get that experience, right? And we have a drive-through window where you can buy drugs and drive off and smoke them on the way home, right? No one's going to catch me because I'm just driving, right? It's not going to kick in until I get to my house. So as a family, we're extremely concerned, and I just want to come down and make that point.
Okay.
I've got a question. That motel is got a chain link fence around it, doesn't it? The one that someone caught it on fire.
I don't know about the fire.
It's right next to the vape shop. That one. Now it's one couple down a little bit from it. I was wondering which motel you were talking about.
There's one right next to it, right next to the location.
One that has fence around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's shut down.
Oh, it's shut down? Okay. We also have a nephew at the middle school, which is, I think it's a couple of blocks away. And, like I was talking to him, and he's like, yeah, there's kids who can go out and get stuff. And this just makes that access that much easier, right? Like, parents have children, parents who smoke have children, right? It just makes the access that much easier for the entire community to get extremely high potency drugs, right? I've heard comments about vape shops, but everything in those places is, it's extremely low potency. That's why it's not as well regulated, right? And so we're going to have extremely high potency marijuana being added to the community within easy access, right? Put it outside town, Have people drive out of town and go pick it up.
Okay. Did you want to
I
address
just would like to
one of his
address one
questions,
thing
Lloyd?
around the vape shop comment. In West Virginia, we went to 10 different vape shops. We took the product to a lab and we had the product tested. The product tested with more THC than the product we're allowed to sell in West Virginia. Vape shops, and I'm not saying this vape shop here in Maryland has that issue, but I'm saying vape shops in general have a very significant issue with the type of product they're selling to the public. And it is in Missouri, there were vape shops that were selling packages that looked like lifesavers. And they were little gelatins, like little lifesaver gelatins, and they tested higher than the products that were sold in the dispensaries because the dispensaries are more heavily regulated.
Will you have edibles there at all?
We have the suite of products that's allowed to be sold in the state of Maryland.
Which includes
Edibles are
edibles
part
that
of
look
that
like chocolate
product.
chip cookies, small chocolate chip cookies, little gummy bears, right? It's basically everything. And they're extremely high potency. Like one cookie could be a whole joint's worth.
I understand it, but understand that the state has set forth
Yeah,
certain
regulations.
guidelines, and these people, from what we understand, are following those guidelines.
One of the elements that was highlighted in there in the conditional use application, I think number 2 or whichever number, it's like the board can approve the conditional use if it's not going to harm the community in terms of morals and convenience and all of those things, right? So you have a business owner right there down the connection. He's concerned about the convenience of his pre-existing running business, right? And so, and you have people in the community highlighting issues around morality and drug use and how those things can impact a neighborhood, a community, a town, if access is made that much easier.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. Is it Maria or Morgan or something like that? Am I getting close to the name? Okay. Let me swear you in, okay? Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that this testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Nothing more the truth.
And your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Maria J. Morgan,
Okay. You're
citizen de St. Mary's County, and citizen for United States of America. I have a property here in Taylor Lane, right behind the bicycle trail where you want to put the dope marijuana dispensary, okay? I don't like it. I'm very sad, because they going to put a dispensary over there. I work in all my life to buy the beautiful property, and I will have that kind of business over there, modern drugs dealer. That's to me, simple English. And I'm sorry to tell you that. It's very sad, because we have Hickory Hill community, townhouse, between this place, We have Walmart, you guys need to go and learn your community. I learn my community because I've been working very hard in St. Mary's County. But this is very emotional for me. I working around because I have a cleaner business and a maintenance service. See, I know every, community and every place where around the city, because I'm very busy person. And what I see in this city is not good. I'm sick and tired to see younger children using, or teenagers, using drug, because marijuana is drug for me, medical or whatever. It's not good. It's not good for the community. Plus, where I work very hard, for buy the property for my retirement, and that's what I'm going to have it, a marijuana dispensary for the Hickory Hill, for all the children or younger people, You know, you see the bicycle trail over there? That's what you see. Younger people smoking marijuana. And the smell is terrible. I'm sorry, my English is not too good.
You're fine.
You know?
Do
But
you-
I don't like it what I see.
Okay, is there any other?
Yeah, I don't like it what I see. It's not good.
Okay.
It's not good for the community, and I appeal to you guys,
Very good.
you know, to don't do this.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not going
Does
to be.
anybody have any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. Now, we've got down here, what is it, Silva Altman or Altman? I knew I'd get to you eventually.
My name
Okay,
is-
let me swear you in. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony and responses and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And will you please state for the record your name and address?
Sylvia Altman, and I live in 22760
Speak
Taylor.
into the, make sure you get it strong into the mic.
Okay, I live in 22760 Taylor Lane. It's right behind the business they are proposing. And I just have a couple of questions in relation to what they are offering, and also a comment for the county board. First of all, I am confused about the fact that this is called medical marijuana dispensary, but in the discussion, Mr. LaRocco, I think, asked about recreational selling of marijuana, and I say, and I think he said yes. So it is confusing. What is the real purpose of that? Because if it's gonna be only medical, it's one thing, and that's the name. But if along with the medical, it's gonna be the selling of recreational marijuana. So that's a question I have.
Okay,
And-
can you answer that question very
Right,
simply?
It's both, medical and adult use.
See, and to me, it's misleading to put this out as a medical marijuana dispensary. It sounds very nice. And all I heard at the beginning of the presentation, and also all the first questions you board members asked, it was all in relation to commercial concerns, land use concerns, change of activity for a building, parking lot spaces. But to me, this is not, that's a point that concerns me. It's like-
Okay, the product will be both, to answer your question.
And the other point is, there was they were referring also in the 30-minute long first presentation to complying with all the requirements. But I don't think we should take lightly that a preschool center is only 530 or 28 feet away, a foot of feet away. I mean, it's, I know they complying with the requirement, but it's just very close. And I don't think it's fair to make the point that the school is across the street from the huge avenue. I mean, in relation to the same point, I'm also concerned about the minimizing of the school bus. It's like that's not a requirement. And the school bus is not taking across the street because I live right behind the place they are proposing to install there. A bus picking up children right in that corner across of right besides that Checkers store. You know, that's where the bus stop is. And the bus stops also goes into Taylor Lane to pick up children that live in 22758, and other children, there's 5 or 6 houses inside where they pick up children. So the school concern seems like it was totally minimized, and the children were minimized, and it's okay. But that's just my experience. Also, they also mentioned the fact there was no safety issues there. Like we are in the paradise part of the city. There's safety concerns there, specifically because of the what is called Old Railroad Trail. We all know that that's a problem. It's a short block, you know, and behind that trail, all kind of bad things happen. You know, it's a heavy traffic place at night, during the day. People that you don't know, they hang around Walmart corner, begging or smoking pot or doing this and that. Sometimes a bicycle is left in the corner of that little dead-end street where I live. And we have to be very grateful that the crazy person set the Motel 8 on fire, because it's been better since then. And
we'll have to wrap it up a little bit.
Besides the 2 motels, there were always children pick up for school buses in those motels, because they put families, I think social service sometimes in there. And in the last point I'd like to make, and I will thank him too, Mr. LaRocco, who mentioned the fact there's about 8 vaping stores coming from, you know, the second door of the Navy base up to basically that corner. And it's 2 of them in that short block. One right beside them that are going to be competing for the recreational part or the adult use, and the other one right beside around Nicoletti's.
Okay.
Both of those were broken into about a year ago.
Okay, is that it?
No, and my last point is I don't know what the county is thinking, or what do you want to turn our community into. There's 10 or, I don't know, 12 vaping places. He made the point, well done, about what they are really selling there. Okay. It's about 12. I don't know how you prove all that. What are we turning our community into?
Thank you. Anybody have questions?
No.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, I guess we'll close it to public testimony and written comments. Do you want to make any final statements?
I mean, I guess the statement I'd make is that I think you've heard my clients speak tonight. They are willing to work with the community. They are willing to talk to the community, be available. They've been willing to sit up here and answer the questions directly. I know you sit through meeting after meeting, and that is not always the case. This is a legal use that our state has, a legal business that our state has decided to make legal. There is a track record now to know what good practices are. You have people here that have done this before. This is not somebody that is new to this type of business. And certainly there are concerns that all of us have in our community. We respect all the opinions that people bring and the concerns they have. I think I speak for my clients where they sincerely believe that the proof will be once the facility is open, that many of those concerns will not come to fruition because of the way they're going to run their business.
And I would just say my family has owned property at Rodo Beach on Chesapeake Bay, Chesapeake Beach Drive since the 1950s. Quasi can talk about his family. His great-grandparents started in Ridge, so we're not strangers to St. Mary's County.
My family has had land, Seaside View Road, past the old rod and reel, around the corner from the trailer park down there. I guess there's a new emu or there's a equestrian right there for generations. My great-grandparents had the land. It's an heir property, so they passed it down to their children. My mom currently built a brand new house there a few years ago. So I appreciate the community coming out, but we also have deep ties to the community, and we care about the community as well.
Okay. I guess at this point, the board will now move to the discussion and decision portion of the hearing.
Well, I want to say that what the board is to do is look at the COMAR regulations and to also look at regulations and ordinances that the county has put forth. I believe that between the state, which is the COMAR regulations, and the regulations within the county, that you've met everything for conditional use. I also want to just, I guess more on a personal level, I'm a retired ER nurse. So as far as you talked about like a safer way to get the marijuana, I guess I see that as a positive thing instead of having to take care of someone that has gotten marijuana or their other drugs off the street, because then you're trying to revive them, and of course when they don't, then you're having to go inform the family. So those are just my comments.
Yeah, I got a couple things. I served 22 years active duty, then 15 years I served as a civil servant. So 70% of my life I've served our country, right? I personally do not like marijuana. I think it's a gateway drug. I don't like smoking either. But saying that, it's legal. We live in a republic. We voted. I voted against it. I lost. It's legal, right? And so the gentleman talked about the 8 standards. One talks about moral. You could argue morals in the community is what they vote on. So they voted that this is legal, right? Right here is the ordinance from the county commissioners, 5-0, they approved it, right? So bus stops come and go. One of my kids went to Esperanza School. I know exactly where that is. And so personally, I would not approve it, but legally, you guys meet every standard there is for the conditional use. So voting has consequences, okay? That's it.
Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, it's a pretty sad day, really. I mean, I'd have to admit that, it's people that use this stuff, it's really not good for them. Unless it's, a medical doctor prescribes something. So I don't know what percentage of that clientele that would be. And the rest of it, just, oh yeah, I think I'll get high today, but it's legal. And once again, I didn't vote for it either, but, I'm gonna have to go along with this. So that's why I call it a sad night. That's it.
For me personally, I appreciate everyone in the community coming in and sharing their thoughts. Understand that, as board members, we have to take a look, and we're bound by law, right? So do you meet the burden of the law, or do you not? That's what we're voting on. We don't get to share our personal thoughts, or at least I'm not going to do that, and that's not going to sway my vote one way or the other. As a father of 5, I've got teenagers, I've got kids that are out of the house. I understand everyone's concerns, and I empathize with that. But what I would ask of you personally, operators of the business, do your due diligence, and be be members of the community. And you've heard heartfelt testimony from concerned business owners and homeowners that really are concerned about that. I drive that trek every day, and I see what they're talking about. They're not embellishing. That stretch of road seems to be getting worse and worse. I don't know what's going on in this country, but our country is broken, and our kids need some guidance. So when I see them out there, it just kind of breaks my heart. Anyway, I digress, but please do your due diligence. I applaud you guys and your entrepreneurship. Wish you the best. Thanks.
I guess it's back to me, but I'm not much different than everybody else. So it is the law. They've met, in my mind, they have met the criteria. And the only way you have to counsel your children, you have to work with the neighbors, the community, to try to keep it straight. But that's the same thing if it was any other sort of business, particularly if it's tobacco or alcohol. So I want to hear a motion, I guess.
Go ahead. Do you want to, Mike?
Who wants to?
I'll read it.
Okay, go ahead, Donnie.
Too many people dying from drugs.
Okay. In the matter of CUAP 25-0023, Southern Ways Dispensary, having made a finding that the standards for granting a conditional use and the objectives of Section 51.3.76 of St. Mary's County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance have been met, I move to approve the request to allow the proposed cannabis dispensary use 76 alpha within the medium intensity mixed use zoning district.
A second.
The vote, do you want to start with you?
Aye.
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 Aye. So, as far as Mr. Longmore, you all and have heard the board and seen the vote. An order reflecting the board's decision will be prepared by staff and signed by the board within 60 days. A 30-day period follows from the date of the order is signed, during which any aggrieved party may appeal the board's decision to the circuit court. The recording secretary will email you a copy of the order when it has been signed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
your
It's a
attention.
tough decision tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, now I think we have a couple administrative items, or particularly one. Has everybody read the minutes?
Yes.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes as written.
Here's a second. Do I hear an aye?
Aye.
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 Aye, okay. And does we have any other business?
I think we've got some orders, don't we?
What?
No orders.
No,
tonight.
I
No
thought,
orders, no
thought I
orders.
saw orders
We
on
won't-
our,
We won't talk about the counselor from this county, okay?
I withdraw the comment.
Oh, was that a dig? Okay, is nothing else for the good of the county? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.